In Konoha, I collected corpses on the battlefield for 10 years. Chapter 41. Unrealistic. Konoha is a place that produces geniuses. He has seen all kinds of geniuses, those from ninja clans and those from common backgrounds. But Kaifeng is impossible. It's not that he hasn't sent people to observe him, starting from when he came into contact with Asuma and then the previous missed ninja incident. The Anbu ninjas who were monitoring him all reported almost the exact same situation, a ninja who couldn't be more well behaved. In addition, he is not a clan ninja, his foundation is weak, he has no bloodline limit, and he has no family support. Even the most commoner geniuses that Hiruzen Sarutobi has seen, such as Orochimaru and Minato Namikaze, would not have been able to kill a Jonin at the age of 13 without the guidance of a strong teacher. Perhaps, he has some unknown secrets, Orochimaru added jokingly. Can you find out if there is anyone hidden behind him? Hiruzen Sarutobi ignored his joke and simply asked. No, Orochimaru replied quickly, and continued, it's not that I can't, it's that I haven't found anything. If Orochimaru said he hadn't found anything, then there really was nothing. Hiruzen Sarutobi frowned, took a puff from his pipe, perhaps, it really is just luck, as he said. Because from the few observations, Kaifeng's feelings towards Konoha, his comrades, and especially the corpses of his comrades, were genuine. This kind of thing cannot be faked. Hiruzen Sarutobi didn't believe that anyone could pretend freely in front of him and Orochimaru. Therefore, he is a Konoha ninja, and his heart is in Konoha, there is no doubt about that. Orochimaru shrugged, luck, maybe. Indeed, there was nothing else to explain. It's not like there haven't been ninjas with good luck. Hiruzen Sarutobi has even seen more exaggerated cases. In a battle on the battlefield with hundreds or thousands of ninjas, a battle where the number of deaths reached thousands, even the Jonin suffered heavy casualties. Yet, a Konoha genin in the center of the battle survived unscathed, with almost no damage. What is luck? This is luck, but luck is also part of strength. No matter what the reason, he is a Konoha ninja, that's enough. Indeed, he is a Konoha ninja, and he is also a Konoha ninja who gradually gained the approval of others through his behavior of protecting corpses, that's enough. He didn't say much more about Kaifeng. A genin with good luck is not enough for Hiruzen Sarutobi to spend so much energy on at this time. However, in Hiruzen Sarutobi's eyes, he was labeled as a lucky ninja. At this time, Kaifeng, who was far away in the morgue, didn't know that he had been mentioned back and forth many times in the mouths of Hiruzen Sarutobi and Orochimaru. And because of his usual positive attitude towards corpses, he had gained the approval of Hiruzen Sarutobi. If he knew, he would probably treat every corpse even more seriously. That kind of attitude of protecting private property. Going out for a trip is dangerous, but the rewards are really high. Looking at the full morgue, Kaifeng, with bandages wrapped around his arms, had never experienced such satisfaction. The satisfaction of the room being filled with corpses. If a normal person knew that he had such a hobby, they would probably stay away from him. This person is not normal, he actually likes to be with corpses. If Kaifeng has a girlfriend or a wife in the future, the other party might even ask, do you love me more, or corpses more? And Kaifeng's answer might drive her crazy, corpses. There's no way around it. Corpses, especially the corpses of strong people, are his guarantee of surviving safely in this world. If he can't even survive, what's the point of talking about love? That's not right. Kaifeng's eyes rolled, and he suddenly reacted, even if I don't go to the front line, the corpses of those dead ninjas will be transported here, right? Wait a minute, but recently, the number of corpses transported here has obviously decreased a lot, especially the corpses of Jonin, whether from Konoha or other villages. He slowly rubbed his chin. In other words, someone is deliberately intercepting these corpses, either Konoha has another unknown place, using special methods to destroy these corpses. Gradually, Kaifeng seemed to understand something, his expression changing. After a while, he lowered his head and sighed, taking out a cigarette and lighting it. Since Kai was in charge of cleaning the morgue, it has been very clean every day, so clean that Kaifeng didn't know how to continue assigning tasks to Kai. Therefore, he could only, reluctantly, appropriately increase some difficulty. He exhaled a smoke ring. Forget it, this kind of thing is not something I can get involved in. Anyway, there probably won't be few casualties in the next period of time. He rubbed his hands and shifted his attention back to the Jonin corpses lying in front of him. All yellow corpses, carefully counting, there are 11 in total. 11. Including the 7 Iwa Jonin killed by Orochimaru and the others, the Konoha Jonin who died in battle, and the Teraizumori outpost Jonin who was snatched back. Among them, there is 1 yellow corpse that Kaifeng has already touched, so there are still 10 left. But we still have to count the Iwa Jonin Tsuchishi that he personally killed. Counting back and forth, there are still 11. Adding the Chunin corpses, also known as green corpses, the total comes to 36. Jackpot! Kaifeng's eyes sparkled with excitement, barely able to contain his trembling hands. The only downside now is the sheer number of corpses, as he has a limited number of attempts each day. He estimates that before he can finish touching them all, the bodies might be claimed by their families. Let's start with the Jonin, minimizing losses as much as possible. Among the corpses this time, there are no members of any special bloodline clans. Starting with the Konoha ninjas, since the Iwa ninjas' bodies won't be claimed, they'll probably stay in the morgue for a long time. Yellow corpse, 30% success rate. Touch corpse, this time 3/3, today 9/9. Yes, each corpse touch is always exciting, regardless of the corpse's level. Failure. Success. Obtained Shadow Clone Jutsu Ninjutsu card. Failure. Finally, Kaifeng felt tears welling up in his eyes. He finally obtained the Shadow Clone Jutsu. The first native cheat in this Naruto world. Although Kaifeng doesn't have a high demand for the Shadow Clone Jutsu, as he basically doesn't train and mainly relies on the strength gained from corpse touching, he knows his talent is extremely mediocre, and training is just a waste of time. But the Shadow Clone Jutsu is still extremely useful in actual combat. As a B-rank ninjutsu, the Shadow Clone Jutsu isn't as perverted as the A-rank Forbidden Technique, Multiple Shadow Clone Jutsu, but it's safer. Continue. Yellow corpse, 30% success rate. Touch corpse, this time 3/3, today 6/9. Yes. Failure. Failure. Success. Obtained single attribute random +3 enhancement card. Very simple, but also the most useful. What Kaifeng lacks the most now is basic attributes. If his basic attributes can be raised to Jonin level, and he further develops his Shikatsumyaku and Sharingan, he can try to go toe-to-toe with ordinary quasi-cage level experts. Third corpse. Success. Obtained single attribute random +3 enhancement card. Failure. Success. Obtained inherited headband. Another special item. This corpse touch is overall mediocre, just like when he usually touches white corpses, without too many surprises. It's just that the white corpse has become a yellow corpse, and the value of the items is a bit higher. 6 points of attributes are what he usually gains in 5 or 6 days. Use ninjutsu card, use enhancement card. Successfully learned Shadow Clone Jutsu. Illusion +3, body +3. He's really going further and further down the path of a taijutsu monster. Pulling up the attribute panel, he opened the item information for the inherited headband. Name, inherited headband upgradable. Level 1. Description. This is the inheritance of a ninja, imbued with the will of generations of ninjas. Effect. Body +2, spirit +2 when worn. Side effect. The inheritance of the will of fire is unstoppable. Wearing it will subtly increase your sense of belonging to Konoha. Note, the key to how to choose lies in your attitude. Upgradable equipment. This is the first time Kaifeng has seen equipment that can be upgraded. The initial attributes add a total of 4 points, but the types of attributes added are very good, taijutsu and chakra, which are the foundation of a ninja's foundation. The focus is still on being upgradable. Kaifeng weighed the headband in his hand. Although the current attributes seem average, anyone with a bit of intelligence understands what the words, upgradable, represent. Unlimited potential, a promising future, a true future warrior. To be able to touch such a good thing from a yellow corpse can be said to be a huge profit, too worthwhile. The only thing Kaifeng doesn't understand is how exactly this headband can be upgraded. Could it be that he has to wait until he dies and pass it on to someone else in order to upgrade it? But by then, this thing would have little to do with me. I'd be dead, so why bother with leveling up or anything else? And then there's the side effect of this equipment. Subtly enhances the wearer's sense of belonging to Konoha. Are you a lobbyist sent by that old monkey Hiruzen Sarutobi? Finally, Kaifeng was still a little dissatisfied. Why is it just a forehead protector, and not a ninja sword or ninja tool or something? This infinitely upgradable equipment has no presence at all. Looking at this forehead protector, not only does it lack the metallic luster of a new one, but there are even faint traces of mottled bloodstains on the headband. Forget it, one should be content and not ask for too much. If it's not cool, it's not cool, but it's still quite practical. Kaifeng took off his original forehead protector and put on this, inherited forehead protector. Instantly, he could feel a strange energy coming from the forehead protector. Moreover, inexplicably, he only felt that Konoha was so beautiful, and he hoped to continue to live a stable life in Konoha. This is the side effect. The effect is not very strong, and the feeling is not very clear. Regarding this, Kaifeng didn't feel there was any problem. What a joke, he's in Konoha now, would he run off and become a rogue ninja? The current Konoha is the safest place in the entire ninja world. Besides, the forehead protector only makes him feel more belonging to Konoha. It doesn't mean he has to become a die-hard supporter of Hiruzen Sarutobi, Danzo, and those people. They cannot represent the entire Konoha. Kaifeng cleverly found a loophole in this equipment. At the same time, as he wore this equipment, his taijutsu attribute finally broke through the 50-point mark. Towering above the other attributes, chakra also became the second attribute to break through 30 points. Moreover, the system also gave a prompt. Comprehensive evaluation increased. Elite Chunin. Character: Maruyama Kaifeng. Age: 13 years old. Attributes: Fire, Earth. Strength: Elite Chunin. Bloodline limit: Corpse Bone Pulse Medium Sharingan Single Tomo. Body: 50. Spirit: 30. Ninjutsu: 25. Genjutsu: 23. Control: 28. Hand Seals: 25. Taijutsu: Flowing Water Sword Technique. Ninjutsu: 3 Body Technique, Fire Release, Great Flame Flower, Earth Release, Rock Hiding Technique, Earth Release, Earth Mausoleum Return, Fire Release, Flame Bullet, Water Release, Water Wall, Wind Release, Great Breakthrough, Shadow Clone Technique. Items: Flint's Obsession, Inherited Forehead Protector equipped. Next, in addition to obtaining some ninjutsu and attributes from corpses every day, Kaifeng felt that he also needed to do some training. The main goal was placed on the Corpse Bone Pulse. He had not developed the ability of the Corpse Bone Pulse and could not fully present its power. Although his talent is ordinary, the development of the Bloodline Limit ability has nothing to do with talent, the focus is on the brain. Kaifeng believes that he may not have anything else, but his brain is not bad. Night falls. Kaifeng was busy all day before finally processing all the corpses in the morgue. Fortunately, the Corpse Bone Pulse also brought a significant improvement in recovery ability. Although it was not enough for a complete recovery, it was far beyond what ordinary ninjas could match. However, the mental trauma was still there, so he didn't plan to wait until 12 o'clock to continue touching corpses, but instead went back to sleep to soothe his injured soul. Just as he walked out of the morgue and hadn't had time to lock the door, he noticed a figure clinging to the shadows in the corner. He was shocked. But when he was about to assume a defensive posture, he saw the appearance of the figure that appeared. To be honest, at the first glance of seeing this person, he would rather it was an enemy who wanted to steal corpses. Orochimaru. Watching Orochimaru walk out of the shadows, Kaifeng was as respectful as ever and said, "Orochimaru-sama." Orochimaru looked at Kaifeng with great interest, and after a long time, he said, "Kaifeng-kun, I have always been curious, the mist ninjas from the land of hot water last time, and the rock ninjas from the land of waterfall this time, were both Jonin. How did you survive?" The extremely penetrating snake pupils locked onto Kaifeng. Although he had answered such questions more than once, Orochimaru still felt that Kaifeng had not made some things clear. Kaifeng smiled honestly and replied calmly, "Because of luck, the reputation of Konoha ninjas in the ninja world is still good." Orochimaru's lips curled up in a smile, and he laughed, "Luck." The meaningful gaze made Kaifeng feel very uncomfortable, as if his secrets couldn't be hidden from him. But he still forced a calm expression, controlling the subtle changes in his face, not revealing too much. There was no other way. If he wanted to continue quietly nesting in the morgue, hiding his strength and abilities was essential. Otherwise, not only Orochimaru but also Danzo would be watching him. This was what Kaifeng was most worried about now. Although, the current Orochimaru was already somewhat curious about him because of his explanations and experiences. It seems necessary to really fabricate such a non-existent ninja, Kaifeng thought helplessly. Regarding this, he already had a plan. He only needed to let this fabricated ninja debut at the right time. Orochimaru didn't see much from Kaifeng's face, or rather, Orochimaru didn't care what he wanted to express at all. He simply crossed his arms and spoke again, "There's one more thing that I can't quite understand. Kaifeng-kun, why, from the first moment you saw me, were you so repulsed by me? It's the kind of repulsion that far exceeds the awe of others." Hearing this, Kaifeng's heart tightened. Orochimaru's observation ability was truly meticulous. Trying to hide anything from him was as difficult as ascending to heaven. Thoughts raced through his mind. Fortunately, he had prepared some explanations in advance to deal with this situation. Awkwardly scratching his head, he explained with a sheepish smile, "Actually, I'm in awe on one hand, but more than that, I'm afraid of snakes." Yeah, afraid of snakes. This wasn't a lie, especially snakes named Orochimaru. As for whether he believed it or not, that was up to the beholder. Orochimaru didn't laugh, but instead said seriously, "Afraid of snakes?" As expected of Kaifeng-kun. When communicating with Orochimaru, it was always difficult to tell whether he really believed it or was just pretending to believe it. So Kaifeng decided not to continue this topic and instead took the initiative to shift the direction of the conversation, trying to seize the initiative. After pondering for a moment, he asked softly, "I wonder if Lord Orochimaru has come to this morgue late at night because there's something you need me to do." Orochimaru stared at Kaifeng, licked his lips, "Yes." He walked to a neatly groomed corpse, gently placing his fingers on it, as if stroking a work of art. He said something out of the blue, "Our attitudes toward corpses are truly strikingly similar, Kaifeng-kun." Quote. After speaking, he returned to the main topic. The village will be holding the Chunin exams in a while. Chunin exams. At this time, Kaifeng was a little surprised. Even he, a corpse-collecting genin, knew how tense the situation was in the ninja world. Holding the Chunin exams now, weren't they afraid that people from other villages would come and cause trouble? Immediately afterward, he asked, "Lord Orochimaru wouldn't want me to participate in the Chunin exams, would you?" Orochimaru raised the corner of his mouth, not answering, just looking at him with a smile. It was unsettling to watch. Kaifeng quietly swallowed. "No need, right, being a genin is pretty good. Besides, I'm just one person, and I don't have a genin team, so don't let me affect others. Don't worry, with your strength, Kaifeng-kun, you don't need to participate in the so-called Chunin exams." Hearing this, Kaifeng breathed a sigh of relief. But Orochimaru's next words made him a little confused. "It's to have you be an examiner." "An examiner? Me, a genin?" Kaifeng pointed at himself, somewhat in disbelief. What a joke, he was just a genin. What qualifications did he have to become an examiner for the Chunin exams? Of course, not as a genin. Orochimaru walked past the corpse, walked in front of Kaifeng, and slowly leaned down, his pale face reflected in his eyes. The mission to the land of hot water, the mission to the land of waterfall, these were ultimately rated as A-rank missions. Whether you achieved them through luck or something else, since you completed the missions, it means you should be able to shoulder more responsibility. So, I specifically applied to Teacher Hiruzen to promote your ninja rank to Chunin." After speaking, he narrowed his eyes and silently waited for Kaifeng's reaction. Kaifeng lowered his head, not daring to look directly into Orochimaru's eyes, and remained silent for a long time before raising his head and saying, "Chunin, does it come with a raise?" Quote. It does. Orochimaru was a little unsure about his thought process. Kaifeng chuckled and asked curiously, "But, don't you have to pass the Chunin exams to be promoted to Chunin?" Unless it's Anbu, or the wartime system is activated," Orochimaru added. He reached out and gently patted him on the shoulder. "Do you think it's too early to start the wartime system now?" Too early. If it had been before, it might have been a little early, but after personally participating in the Torimori outpost mission, Kaifeng felt that it wasn't early at all. Since he knew that the war was about to break out, it was better to prepare in advance than to have no preparation at all. He pursed his lips and shook his head. But he was still a little unwilling and said, "Can I not go? What's so good about being an examiner for the Chunin exams? It's far more comfortable and safe for me to stay in the morgue and rummage through corpses." The significance of this Chunin exams was obviously extraordinary, and different ninjas from the major hidden villages would come. Being exposed to the sight of these people and attracting unnecessary attention was not what he wanted. Unexpectedly, Orochimaru nodded, "You can." But he added, "Becoming my subordinate means you don't have to participate." Twisting and turning, he still ended up back here. Kaifeng awkwardly rubbed his nose. Actually, participating in the Chunin exams isn't a bad thing, you can make more friends. Of course, I want to become Lord Orochimaru's subordinate, but I feel that my abilities are still a bit lacking and need more training. Orochimaru smiled noncommittally, as if he wasn't surprised by Kaifeng's answer. In a week, Cloud Ninjas, Mist Ninjas, and Sand Ninjas will arrive one after another. Go find Nara Shikaku in advance and report to him, he will assign you a task. After speaking, Orochimaru's figure began to collapse like soft mud, and finally disappeared into the ground, leaving only a small snake, wriggling and crawling leisurely away from the morgue. There was also a black, palm-sized booklet, which was the ninja certificate. Watching the little snake leave, Kaifeng stuck his fingers into his hair and rubbed it vigorously. Picking up the ninja certificate, he looked at the rather eye-catching words, Chunin. What is this all about? The main point is, this time node, can Chunin exams still be held? Do they dare to hold Chunin exams? It's really like the situation before World War II in his previous life, still organizing the Olympic Games. The previous life's location was in Berlin, Germany, here in the Hidden Leaf village of the Land of Fire. Tisk. From far away, one could hear Obito's extremely exaggerated and unrestrained voice, filled with surprise, shock, and disbelief. Senior Kaifeng, you're actually a Chunin now. Why? Obito looked at the ninja certificate that Kaifeng had thrown aside. The word, Chunin, on it was the source of his shock. Why, don't you sleep until noon every day, and bask in the sun at the door all afternoon? Don't you ever cultivate or do missions as a corpse handler? How did you get promoted to Chunin? Obito's voice became louder and louder. This is unfair. He, seriously, cultivates every day, helps old grandmothers cross the road every day, and shouts about defeating Kakashi every day, but he still hasn't graduated from the ninja school early. In his eyes, this, lazy, senior has quietly become a Chunin. And with that disgusted expression. What does that mean? It's not easy for us to graduate and become genin, but you, who are so idle, have become a Chunin, and you still look disgusted. This is unfair. The world is going downhill. The Leaf Village's ninja assessment system has actually become so casual. Chunin, as expected of Senior Kaifeng, he is indeed a role model for us ordinary ninjas, he has already become a Chunin. No, I must work harder, clean the room even more thoroughly. Kai, like a madman, shuttled up and down in the corpse-filled morgue, where everything of dust and garbage had nowhere to hide. Kaifeng silently pulled out a cigarette from Asuma's cigarette case, rubbed his fingers, and lit one for himself and him. The two synchronized, deeply inhaled, and slowly exhaled a smoke ring with a slightly intoxicated expression. The hazy smoke enveloped the two. I didn't expect you to really get promoted to Chunin, Asuma sighed. Kaifeng glared at him unhappily. Ask your old man. Others want to be promoted to Chunin, but that doesn't mean he wants to. Do you know how dangerous it is to be promoted to Chunin? Either you take 3 subordinates, or you follow a Jonin, and the risk factor of performing tasks increases greatly. Even if he is a corpse handler, he can avoid these tasks to a large extent, but once he goes to the battlefield, the Chunin can no longer be as cowardly and hide behind like a genin. Thinking of this, Kaifeng became angry. You seem to dislike it? Asuma asked in surprise. Kaifeng rolled his eyes at him, too lazy to answer. Many things, little kids like Asuma and Obito, won't understand. Only when they grow up will they understand that fame and fortune, and extravagant pleasures, are all garbage in the face of a comfortable and stable life. This is the generation gap between men and boys, they won't understand. It's like when you're in school, there are always seniors who tell you, it's better to study, you never understand why, until you enter society, you will understand, and even continue to repeat this sentence to your younger generations. Sigh, taking another puff, he finally felt relieved. There's nothing he can do, he doesn't know what Orochimaru saw in him, pushing him onto the stage like this. Speaking of which, are you guys so free? Or did you make an appointment to all run to my place? People who don't know would think this is a good place. Suddenly realizing, what are so many people doing in the morgue that everyone avoids? It's a holiday, there's nowhere to go, Asuma said lightly. Kaifeng glared. If there's nowhere to go, you run to my place. Can't you go find Yuhi Kurenai to play with? Just as he finished speaking, he suddenly felt that Asuma's eyes were a little wrong. Are you embarrassed to say that? Speaking of Yuhi Kurenai, Asuma gritted his teeth. If it wasn't for the guy in front of him complaining to Yuhi Shinko, causing Yuhi Shinko to keep Yuhi Kurenai by her side during the holidays, he wouldn't have been able to get close, so would he need to run to this godforsaken place? Hee. Kaifeng laughed dryly. It was indeed his fault, but Shinzo Yuhi had also set his sights on him at the time, so he had to give Shinzo Yuhi a target to shift his attention. Forget it, it's okay to have some excitement once in a while. I can't be bothered. Kaze moved his butt and struck the famous Ju pose. The life of a salted fish is the most suitable for him. If there was a bottle of happy water at this time, life would be perfect. 1 week later. During this week, all the corpses brought back were looted through the system. In addition to the basic attribute growth, which made his strength increase a little bit again, he only obtained a Jonin experience card, which can be regarded as the end of this harvest. Konoha Jonin Nakagami Yoshi experience card rare. The experience card of a Genjutsu type Jonin is very different from Kaze's own attribute expertise, so he feels that even if he uses it, the compatibility may not be high. But if it's just used as an ordinary trump card, it should be enough. Moreover, after having another experience card, he has more confidence in his heart more or less. Holding the Hokage's mission appointment, he found Nara Shikaku in the office on the middle floor of the Hokage building. The Nara clan, the Yamanaka clan, and the Akamichi clan, although these three clans are not wealthy families in Konoha, these three clans have been very firm allies since the Warring States period, and they are even more so after joining Konoha. The alliance of the three clans is not inferior to any clan in Konoha. And the Nara clan is the wisdom leader among the three clans, and Nara Shikaku is a symbol of high intelligence. Mr. Shikaku. Kaze looked very respectful. Nara Shikaku is not only the head of the Nara clan, but also the Hokage's advisor and the leader of the Konoha Jonin class. Nara Shikaku, who was lying on the desk, raised his head and showed a hint of doubt when he saw Kaze's appearance. However, he did not show impatience because he did not know Kaze, but instead asked with a smile, "What's the matter?" Kaze stepped forward and placed the letter of appointment on his desk. Nara Shikaku glanced at it briefly and said with a slightly surprised expression, "You are Maruyama Kaze?" Yes. Kaze looked simple and honest. Is he famous? Looking at Nara Shikaku's initial expression, it was obvious that he didn't know him, so why did he show such an expression after hearing his name? As if seeing his surprise, Nara Shikaku said with a smile, "Lord Orochimaru personally recommended you to be promoted to Chunin, and recommended you to be an examiner for this Chunin exam." Immediately, he looked at him meaningfully. Lord Orochimaru is one of the three legendary Sannin, a powerful ninja. Kaze, you must learn from him and strive to become a towering tree that can shield Konoha. Quote? Hearing him say this, Kaze only had one thought. He's been tricked. Orochimaru asked him if he wanted to become his subordinate, which he cleverly declined. But now it seems that the question was completely unnecessary. His recommendation is equivalent to telling the Konoha executives that Kaze is already his person, his subordinate. He immediately felt as uncomfortable as if he had eaten shit. He really didn't want to have anything to do with Orochimaru, even if in the eyes of others, Orochimaru is almost equivalent to the next Hokage, and he has a very high voice in Konoha. Becoming someone valued by Orochimaru will also have a place in Konoha in the future. It's just that he knows very well that Orochimaru is an extremely dangerous person. Now his thoughts have already begun to be distorted. If it weren't for Hiruzen Sarutobi and the constraints of his Konoha ninja status, he would have let himself go long ago. The most important thing is that Kaze has Sharingan and Kekkei Genkei. Once exposed, he will be dissected by Orochimaru in minutes. But he can't tell anyone about this kind of thing. He just felt like he had been stuffed with a mouthful of shit, and he didn't dare to spit it out, and he had to show a satisfied expression. He took a deep breath and showed an extremely ugly and awkward smile. Please, Mr. Shikaku, give me a task. Nara Shikaku nodded. He flipped through the books on the table. This was his arrangement for this Chunin exam. Soon, he found a vacant position. How about this, Kaze, you will be in charge of the deputy examiner for the first exam, and the second exam, you will be in charge of your job, collecting corpses. After saying that, he handed over a scroll, which detailed Konoha's arrangements for this Chunin exam. Yes, he didn't expect that he would become a proctor one day. Kei's walked on the way back. If Orochimaru hadn't done those things, he might have felt a little bit of comfort in his heart. Pity. On the way, he could clearly feel that there were slightly more people on the streets of Konoha. The Chunin exam is an event held in the ninja world every once in a while. In addition to welcoming ninjas from other villages, it will also promote the economic development of the village. For example, during the preparation period for the Chunin exam, a large number of merchant ships will arrive in Konoha one after another. Especially the villages that come to participate in the Chunin exam. He was a person who liked quiet, a habit perhaps formed from his previous life as a shut-in, or perhaps from spending too much time in the quiet morgue. However, he didn't reject this kind of liveliness. It added a touch of vitality to the indifferent ninja world. But he could also clearly feel that the Anbu's control over the streets, or rather, over the entire Hidden Leaf village, had been further strengthened. This was to prevent any sudden situations from occurring during the Chunin exams. Of course, in this special phase where war was about to break out, Kaifeng believed that the Anbu were more focused on preventing those with ulterior motives from infiltrating the Hidden Leaf village and doing unfriendly things. Just as he passed through the most bustling street and entered the alleyway, preparing to return to the morgue, he suddenly heard some unusual movements. The movements weren't loud. Originally, he didn't really want to go and see. But the movements were happening on his way back. As he approached, he quickly understood the reason. He saw two groups of people standing in the small alley, none of them very old, but the atmosphere seemed unfriendly. One side wore the headbands of Hidden Leaf ninjas, while the other side wore the headbands of Hidden Mist ninjas. Forget it, it's better to avoid trouble, let's just leave it to the Anbu. He could tell that both sides were genin from their respective villages. He wasn't surprised by this kind of animosity between genin from different villages. After all, such things had happened in the original story, and besides, the relationship between Hidden Leaf and Hidden Mist was not very friendly right now. However, just as he was about to take a detour, a casual glance caught a familiar figure among the Hidden Mist ninjas. If he wasn't mistaken, that person should be Kisame Hoshigaki, one of the future 7 ninja swordsmen of the Mist, the owner of the great sword Samahata, a terrifying existence known as the Tailless-Tailed Beast, a member of the Akatsuki, and Itachi Uchiha's partner. However, Kisame Hoshigaki at this moment should only be around 10 years old. Kaifeng was only able to barely recognize him because of his strange shark-like skin and the gill-like lines on his face. As if sensing Kaifeng's gaze, Kisame Hoshigaki, leaning against the wall, turned his head and met Kaifeng's eyes. A pair of shark-like eyes gave off a cold feeling. He stopped in his tracks. He rubbed his head, looking troubled. If Kisame Hoshigaki is here, I'm afraid these newborn calves of Hidden Leaf genin will suffer before the Anbu arrive. Kaifeng stared at him for a second, then withdrew his gaze and muttered to himself. His gaze swept over the Hidden Leaf side. Okay, there isn't a single strong one. I estimate they wouldn't even be a match for Kisame Hoshigaki alone. Should I intervene? That is the question. While Kaifeng was observing them, the Hidden Mist ninjas also noticed this uninvited guest. Following their gaze, the Hidden Leaf side also noticed Kaifeng standing not far behind them. Kaifeng shrugged. Well, it seems like I can't avoid it. If they hadn't noticed him, he could have just left. But now that they've all seen him, if something unexpected really happens, and the higher-ups find out, he will also be held accountable. After all, no matter what, he has now successfully shed his identity as a student and become a teacher. After thinking about it, he put on a stern face, stepped forward and asked, Ahem, what happened? Everyone looked at each other, not immediately answering Kaifeng's sudden appearance. The atmosphere became rather awkward. Kaifeng. Suddenly, someone from the Hidden Leaf side called out his name. Kaifeng secretly breathed a sigh of relief. At least it's not so awkward. Following the voice, he looked over. Kaifeng, is that really you? We haven't seen each other much since graduation. The person who spoke stepped forward and gently patted Kaifeng's shoulder, seeming to know him. It wasn't until the person's face appeared in front of Kaifeng that he finally remembered. This person, it seems, was his classmate before. It's just that he really didn't have much presence, so he didn't remember him right away. Otasuke, why are you here? Otasuke asked. Oh, I heard some movement, so I came to see what happened. There's actually an acquaintance here. He remembered that Otosuke, when he was in the ninja school, belonged to those mediocre students with extremely low presence, not as dazzling as the top students, nor as remarkably present as the underachievers. Kaifeng was one of the underachievers, so Otosuke recognized him. Asked the reason. Otosuke wore an indignant expression, pointed at the mist ninjas opposite him, and gritted his teeth, saying, "They say our Konoha genin are utterly useless and that this Chunin exam is purely a self-inflicted humiliation." Having said that, he looked earnestly at Kei's, waiting for him to show the same expression as himself. But Kei's eyes twitched, trying hard to keep his facial expressions to a minimum. No way, because he thought what they said made a lot of sense. It seemed that none of the Konoha genin at this stage could contend with Kisame Hoshigaki. Of course, he could only think about it in his heart and definitely couldn't say it. Who is that guy? Ordinary looking, ordinary aura, nothing special, don't recognize him. The mist ninjas were also discussing in low voices. Probably just another unknown Konoha genin, maybe just some small fry participating in the Chunin exam. Someone sneered, Konoha is really going downhill, only producing genin with no presence, no fire in their bellies. The Mist Village genin indeed had the right to mock the Konoha genin like this. Because the Mist Village's, Village of the Bloody Mist, policy required Mist genin to stain their hands with the blood of their comrades to graduate. Furthermore, the way Mist Village trained genin was much more brutal than Konoha's, or rather, compared to all the hidden villages in the entire ninja world, Mist Village's training method was the most brutal. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call it the GU breeding method. Not small fry. Kisame Hoshigaki grinned, revealing a mouthful of shark-like sharp teeth, his gaze scrutinizing Kei's direction. That guy noticed me from the beginning. He probably wanted to leave earlier, but stopped suddenly when he saw me. Is that so? The mist ninja next to him seemed a little surprised, but then sneered, whatever, at most it will just add some difficulty to this Chunin exam. After saying that, he turned his head extremely arrogantly, made a throat-slitting gesture towards the Konoha group, and shouted loudly, Konoha genin, wash your necks and wait. As soon as these words came out, the mist ninjas laughed wildly, and the Konoha genin glared at them one by one, seemingly ready to fight at any moment. And the mist ninjas were waiting for them to make the first move, so that they would have a suitable reason to take action in Konoha. Otherwise, the Anbu would invite them to the Anbu base for tea within minutes. However, Kei's couldn't just sit back and watch such a thing happen. He showed a somewhat disgusted expression. Not disgusted with the mist ninjas, nor disgusted with the Konoha genin, but disgusted with the forehead protector he was wearing. It still had an impact. He took a step forward and stopped the Konoha genin who were eager to die. Seeing him step forward, the mist ninjas also prepared themselves. The way they looked at him was like looking at a lamb ready to die, while they were hungry wolves who had been drooling for a long time. Clicking his tongue, Kei slightly phrased his words, this mist hidden genin, please pay attention to your wording, otherwise you will lose the qualification to participate in this Chunin exam. Hearing his words, everyone was stunned, and then burst into laughter. Ha 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 ha, I'm dying of laughter, what qualifications do you, a small fry, have to dare, you. However, before he could finish his words, they got stuck in his throat and he couldn't continue. He pointed at Kei's with an incredulous look. Because he saw that Kei's had an ID card in his hand, with the words, Examiner, clearly written on it. Not only were the expressions on the mist ninjas' faces frozen, but the Konoha side also looked like they had seen a ghost, especially Otosuke, who knew Kei's. He looked at him as if he didn't know him. They originally thought that Kei's and them were all students participating in this Chunin exam. Who knew that he would suddenly take out an ID card and transform from a student taking the exam into a proctor? This change in identity, somewhat unexpected. Kei's rubbed his nose helplessly. I think, as one of the proctors of this Chunin exam, I should have the right to prohibit you from participating in this exam. He didn't want to either. He wanted to get along with them as an ordinary person, but they were so aggressive. There was no way. He revealed his cards, he wasn't pretending anymore, he was the proctor, so he asked if they were afraid. Anyway, even if he didn't reveal his identity today, everyone would know tomorrow. I showed off again. Looking at everyone's ghostly expressions, Kei's little vanity was somewhat satisfied. The Chunin exam proctor, the first experience seems to be not bad. He patted the shoulder of Oda-suke, who had a dull expression. Go back and rest early. No matter what the other party says, you have to get it back in the exam hall. Don't just engage in verbal sparring here. Then he looked at the mist ninjas. His eyes passed over the person who had just made wild remarks and landed on Kisame Hoshigaki. Kisame Hoshigaki took a deep look at Kei's, didn't say anything, turned around and walked towards the depths of the alley. The other mist ninjas also reacted, glared fiercely at the Konoha side, and left angrily with Kisame Hoshigaki. Kei's diffused a possible emergency in time, and without stopping, he turned his back, waved his hand, and walked towards his residence. The Konoha genin behind him looked at each other. In the end, they all focused on Oda-suke. They thought that Kei's, who was about the same age, was a genin participating in the Chunin exam like them, but they didn't expect him to transform into a proctor. Noticing their gazes, Kotatsu smiled helplessly. Don't look at me, I don't know what's going on either. He was probably the most surprised. Looking in the direction Kei's was leaving, he really couldn't understand why the change was so great all of a sudden. Kei's returned to the morgue. He took off his forehead protector with some irritation. This, inherited forehead protector, has a greater influence than he imagined. Even if he didn't have this forehead protector, he would still do it. But the starting point would be completely different. Forget it, I'll find a chance to pass it on. Obito should be a good choice. Taking off the forehead protector would change the system's rating. Kei's thought for a while, and felt that he could react in time, so it shouldn't be a problem. He put it on again. He hadn't used his corpse-touching opportunities for today yet. However, there weren't many corpses left in the morgue. In the past week, the families of the various ninjas had already taken their bodies back. Some Kei's had touched, some he hadn't. Fortunately, his harvest this time was not small. In addition to the steady improvement in attributes, and obtaining the inherited forehead protector, and upgradable equipment, he also obtained many ninjutsu. Among them, the one he cared about the most was a medical ninjutsu called Healing Technique. Healing Technique is a basic ninjutsu for medical ninjas, which can heal some external injuries. Although it is not as powerful as the mystical palm technique, it is still good. In any case, Kei's, as a corpse collector, is actually a branch under the medical department. As a half-medical ninja, how could he not know medical ninjutsu? He used up his opportunities without any waves. The next day, Kei's came to the exam room, to the office next door. The proctors for the first round of the Chunin exams were gathered here. Kei's is here. Nara Chuichi saw Kei's and greeted him with a smile. Am I late? Kei's nodded and greeted everyone one by one. He was a newcomer, so he still had to have enough respect for his seniors. His behavior was unanimously recognized by the seniors in the office. Putting aside everything else, at least the first impression was good. Nara Chuichi clapped his hands, signaling everyone to look at him. Kei stood aside a little restrained, completely in the manner of a newcomer. The first round of the Chunin exams is still a written test as usual. Cheating is allowed, but the number of times is limited to 5. Anyone who is found to have exceeded 5 times will be eliminated. Everyone was not surprised by this, because the Chunin exams held in Konoha have always been this process. Other villages may be different, such as Kurigakure, which starts with fighting and killing, but Konoha values cultural ability, so the tradition will not change. The ninjas from various villages who came to participate in the Chunin exams also learned about the exam situation through their respective instructors. Nara Chuichi glanced at everyone, pondered slightly, and said, then this time, leave Maruyama Kei's, Yamanaka Akika's, and Akamichi Dingza to stay in the exam room and be responsible for proctoring. The rest of you wait outside and escort those who violate the rules, or those whose number of times has reached the upper limit, to leave. Yes, everyone responded. Kei's was a little surprised. He, a newcomer, is proctoring. He thought he just needed to be a bystander. In fact, he didn't know that not only him, but Yamanaka Akika's and Akamichi Dingza were also proctors who hadn't proctored many times. The reason why they chose these newcomers was just to go through the motions. Konoha values cultural achievements, but it doesn't mean that other villages also value them. If the proctoring is too strict, causing heavy losses to the genin in other hidden villages, it will give people the feeling that Konoha is excessively suppressing them. And once the number of people is too small, the subsequent rounds of exams will not proceed smoothly. So letting these inexperienced Chunin proctor is considered a clear release of water. After simply explaining the task, the exam had not yet started, so everyone was just sitting in the office chatting. In his previous life, Kaze would be more or less nervous every time he took an exam, and he was extremely envious of those calm and relaxed proctors. He never thought that he would also have a day to proctor. Without any pressure, and a little schadenfreude, he happily took out a cigarette, rubbed his fingers to light it, took a deep breath, and then slowly exhaled a smoke ring. Comfortable. But soon, he noticed that the chatting in the office stopped, and gazes fell on him. The hand holding the cigarette paused, revealing an awkward smile. I'm sorry, I'm used to it. Just as he was about to put out the cigarette, he saw Nara Chuichi's hand appear in front of him. He looked up and saw Nara Chuichi's, expression. Quote. After hesitating slightly, he tentatively took out a cigarette case, took out one and handed it to Nara Chuichi. The cigarette was quickly snatched away. Kaze subconsciously rubbed his fingers, a flame ignited at his fingertips, and sent it to him. Soon, there was another person in the office puffing smoke. However, the rule for handing out cigarettes is that there are so many people present, how could he only give one? And then, well, Kaze's cigarette case was empty. The office was instantly filled with clouds of smoke, and those who didn't know better would have thought they had entered some kind of wonderland. Looking at this scene, Kaze was speechless. He couldn't help but ask, Nara-sensei, you guys. Nara Chuichi sat beside him, patting his shoulder with a look of loneliness. Kaze, you don't understand the helplessness of married men, you don't understand. Too much to say would just be tears. But Kaze understood, suddenly enlightened. So, the feeling was that everyone in this office was henpecked. People in the ninja world matured early, so they generally married earlier, so that they could maintain a sufficient population in the ninja world, where the average age was extremely low. Marriage is the tomb of men, Kaze. Nara Chuichi sighed. He patted his shoulder meaningfully. No, he had heard that the Nara clan was henpecked, but it was a bit of an exaggeration that the entire office was like this. He didn't believe it. He would rather believe that these people were mooching his cigarettes. Although, he had no evidence. Looking at the empty cigarette case, he wanted to cry but had no tears. However, because of this incident, he had obviously narrowed the distance with all the proctors in the entire office. Before, they were just chatting, and Kaze was listening. Now he could finally join in the conversation. All in all, it wasn't bad. Half an hour later, Nara Chuichi stood up. The exam is about to begin. As soon as he entered the examination hall, he saw that many people had already gathered inside, roughly estimated to be about 100 people, half of whom were Konoha ninjas, and the other half were ninjas from other ninja villages. Mist ninjas, cloud ninjas, sand ninjas, grass ninjas, rain ninjas, hot water ninjas, waterfall ninjas, etc. He only glanced at the Konoha ninjas, and his main gaze was still focused on the mist ninjas, cloud ninjas, and sand ninjas. While he was observing the examination hall, these examinees were also observing the proctors. But when the Konoha ninjas saw Kaze, many of them showed surprised expressions. Many of them were ninjas from the same class as Kaze, or even an earlier class, and even if they weren't familiar with each other, they had met a few times. They were more or less surprised that he appeared here as a proctor. But it didn't affect the progress of the exam. Nara Chuichi said a few simple words and then handed out the test papers. Kaze had seen this test paper, and overall, it was very difficult. Even Konoha, which valued cultural education, might not be able to answer all of them, let alone the ninjas from other villages. Therefore, the content of the exam was very simple, seemingly doing test papers, but in fact, it was still testing their subtle cheating abilities, which was an assessment of details. The test papers were quickly handed out. Nara Chuichi gave Kaze and the other two an eye signal and left the examination hall. Yamanaka Akamichi and Akamichi Choji took the initiative to give the position of chief proctor to Kaze because of the cigarettes earlier, allowing him to sit at the front to invigilate. Kaze said that he was also very helpless about this. Swish, swish, swish. After receiving the test papers, various sounds of frantic writing appeared in the examination hall. Everything seemed calm. The examinees were only slightly surprised by Kaze's identity and did not affect their participation in the exam. Nara Chuichi sat in the monitoring room, crossing his legs and observing the situation in the examination hall. As the chief examiner of the first customary written test of the Chunin exam, he was the most relaxed. Soon, the examinees who were reviewing the questions discovered that the test paper was very difficult and used their respective abilities to start cheating. Tisk, the quality of this batch of examinees is not bad, Nara Chuichi said with emotion. Sitting in the monitoring room, he had already seen some inconspicuous cheating actions. As an experienced old proctor, he was accustomed to these small actions and would not point them out as long as they were not too outrageous. But just because he didn't say it didn't mean no one knew. Kaze, who was sitting in the upper seat, had a serious expression. Number 78, warning once. Take back your sand eye. Number 86, warning once. Take back your slanted eyes. Number 32, warning once. Hand over the cheat sheet. Forget it, hand over your underwear. Number 16, warning once. Do you think I can't see your feet wrapped around the boy in front? Public place. Quote. Kaze began to show great power. As a former, habitual offender, in his past life, he was keenly aware of the little tricks these examinees were pulling. Although the way ninjas used their abilities might differ, the subtle movements and tendencies were all the same. He spoke repeatedly, as if wanting to convey all the hardships he had once suffered to these examinees. Almost everyone's actions in the arena were difficult to escape his eyes. He even noticed movements that Nara Chuichi had missed. Less than 10 minutes into the exam. Number 86. Disqualified. Quote. For a time, the examination hall became extremely tense, and everyone was afraid to move, lest they be discovered. But if they didn't cheat, they couldn't finish the paper, so how could they pass the exam? Nara Chuichi in the monitoring room widened his eyes. At this moment, in his eyes, Kaze had transformed into the strictest examiner. The problems pointed out by Yamanaka Akamichi and Akamichi Dingza were not even 1/5 of what he had pointed out. Was Kaze going to eliminate everyone in the first round of the Chunin exams? Is Kaze trying to kill the exam? Nara Chuichi muttered. He felt a little restless. If this continued, probably no more than a handful of people would be able to participate in the second round. What was the point of even having the exam? One by one, the examinees were sent out of the examination hall dejectedly. Those proctors outside the examination hall, who had originally thought they were just there for show, suddenly became extremely busy. They were too busy to escort the examinees who were leaving the examination hall. In just 20 minutes, Kaze had, successfully, sent 20 examinees out of the examination hall. Not only the ninjas from other villages like Kurigakure, but also those from Konoha were not spared. Did this guy have the Sharingan or the Byakugan? The examinees were depressed, but they couldn't openly shout it out. After all, cheating was just a subtle hint, it didn't mean they could do it openly. As more and more examinees left with their heads hanging low, Nara Chuichi finally couldn't sit still. Number 16, disqualified. Kaze's indifferent voice sounded again. At this moment, he only had one feeling. Invigilating, awesome. So awesome, but coincidentally, this examinee number 16 was the Kurigakure ninja he had encountered in the alley last night. Kaze didn't harbor any personal grudges. Definitely not. He just paid, slightly, extra attention to these few Kurigakure ninjas. But this Kurigakure ninja, who wasn't in a good mood, didn't think so. He thought Kaze was targeting him. Although his feeling was correct. Although other people were also pointed out for cheating, at least they were discovered when their actions were about to end. But he was different. As soon as he made a move, Kaze immediately discovered it. He deeply felt Kaze's malice. Therefore, I'm not convinced. You're targeting me. Targeting us Kurigakure ninjas. This Kurigakure ninja didn't leave immediately, but stood in front of Kaze with a look of resentment. Kaze's expression didn't change, and he stared straight at him. This examinee, our invigilation is very professional and will not target anyone. Unless I can't help it. He wasn't a saint, why wouldn't he target them if he had the chance? He clearly remembered that this person had called him trash yesterday. He was timid in combat, but he would strike hard as an invigilator. If he could get a special Jonin position based on his invigilation skills, that wouldn't be bad either. Looking at Kaze's unwavering appearance, the Kurigakure ninja clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got, the more he backed down, the more he felt he was losing out. Yesterday's matter, plus today's matter, combined together, old and new grudges, he couldn't bear it anymore. Die. In his opinion, although Kase was an examiner and a chunin, he couldn't be that strong considering his age. Moreover, he had never heard of such a person in Konoha. He wasn't stupid. He knew he couldn't kill anyone in Konoha, but he had to let Kase know his power, let him know the power of the Kurigakur ninjas. Drawing his short sword, he took 3 steps as 2, and the short distance was instantly closed. The attack, wrapped in anger, was about to fall like thunder. Yamanaka Akamichi and Akamichi Dingza in the examination hall changed their expressions. This was the shocking act of an examinee attacking an examiner. Looking at it on a small scale, it was contempt for Konoha's rules. Looking at it on a large scale, it was a question of Kurigakur's attitude towards Konoha. It was just that the examination hall was large, and the 2 of them were standing in the back corner, so they couldn't help in time. Nara Chuichi in the monitoring room had just stood up when he saw this scene, and his expression became solemn. At this moment, the examiners outside were also on their way escorting the examinees, and there were almost no people guarding outside. It all depended on Kase's personal ability. But they really didn't know about Kase's strength. In fact, before this, many people had never heard of this name or seen this person. Some examinees watched this scene with interest, including Kisame Hoshigaki, as well as several strong ninja from Cloud and Sand villages. They were curious about how Kase would respond. Kase's expression remained unchanged, and his eyes flashed. He thought for a moment between dodging and counter-attacking. Of course, dodging was in line with his character. But as an examiner, if he dodged, he would lose his momentum and be underestimated by the examinees, which would be detrimental to future supervision and would also lose face for Konoha. Konoha's face must not be lost. The forehead protector exerted its power again. He made a choice in an instant. Wind rose beneath his feet, and he rushed towards the mist ninja's short knife. He deflected the attack with a punch, turned around, and heavily kicked him in the chest with a charged kick. Only to hear, crack, crack, the crisp sound of bones breaking. The mist ninja came quickly and went even faster, hitting the wall of the examination room hard. His face was full of disbelief, and he slowly slid down, blood uncontrollably spurting from his mouth. Kase slowly walked up to him, looked down at him condescendingly, and said lightly, "We are very professional and will not target anyone." PFF. Whether it was from injury or anger, the mist ninja rolled his eyes and passed out. Kase's sharp eyes swept the audience, and no one dared to meet his gaze. The exam continues. Most people were not surprised by this result. A chunin kicking away a genin is a very normal result, right? Due to Kase's power, they buried their heads in their questions. He appeared calm on the surface, but his heart was actually panicking. You must know that although many examinees in the examination room had been expelled by him, more were still staying in the examination room. If they attacked him in groups, then, inside, there was Kisame Hoshigaki, who appeared to be a genin on the surface, but actually possessed the strength of a chunin or even stronger. Without fully exposing his strength, Kase felt that he was not a match. Fortunately, these people were still rational and would not do that. Just as someone dragged away the unconscious mist ninja, Shikazu Nara came over. He gave Kase a look, signaling him to come out. Kase shrank his neck and walked out. Kase, well done. Shikazu Nara praised him as soon as he came up. Kase breathed a sigh of relief. He thought Shikazu Nara was here to question him. After all, he almost killed this chunin exam with his own strength. We can be polite and kind to these ninjas from other villages, but that doesn't mean that Konoha is weak and can be bullied. You did a good job this time. Shikazu Nara knew the real purpose of this chunin exam best. It was to give a shock to the major hidden villages that came to participate, and to provide a certain opportunity for negotiation. In order for Konoha to occupy a greater and more active position at the negotiating table, this chunin exam must fully present Konoha's advantages and Konoha's strength. Kase touched his nose. It should be. No one felt that it was abnormal for him to kick the mist ninja unconscious. Kase was a chunin, an examiner, and the other party was a genin, an examinee. There was an indelible gap in strength. What was wrong with a genin being kicked unconscious by a chunin? Not paying too much attention to his strength made him breathe a sigh of relief. He was in a difficult situation just now, and he didn't want to cause unnecessary attention because of this matter. Orochimaru alone was enough to bother him. If he added Hiruzen Sarutobi, Danzo, Uchiha, Hyuga, etc., he probably wouldn't be able to be a corpse collector in peace. That kind of complicated power struggle was too brain-consuming, so leave it to those old guys. Young people should look like young people. After finishing the business, Shikazu Nara glanced around, and after confirming that no one was there, he said quietly, "K's, appropriately relax the monitoring density a little bit, don't kick most people out, there are still 2 rounds behind, we have been preparing for a week, we can't watch other people's efforts go to waste, right?" K's stretched out his hand and made an, "okay," gesture. "Actually, I understand everything. Most of the time, I only point it out after they have completed the act of cheating. As long as they can finish the paper within 5 times, they will not be eliminated. It's just that a few individuals were, slightly, targeted by him. He is not a grudgeful person." Shikazu Nara thought for a while. It seemed that he had indeed been doing this from the beginning. He patted him on the shoulder with great relief. "Very good, then follow your own rhythm." Shikazu Nara admired K's principled person very much. He is a man who does practical things. He couldn't help but sigh, watching K's walk back to the examination room again. Chapter 51. However, his sigh was cut short. Number 25. Disqualified. Number 30. Fourth warning. Hearing K's stern voice from inside, Nara Chuichi's eyes twitched. He suddenly regretted saying something like, "Follow his pace." Could it be that very few people will pass the first round? Nara Chuichi couldn't help but want to slap himself. Actually, he overestimated K's. Even if K's really had the ability to kill the Chunin exam single-handedly, he wouldn't dare to do so. If he did, anyone could find out he was responsible, and being exposed to everyone's attention was not what he wanted. Moreover, doing so would not only fail to earn Konoha's praise, but would also make him a target for the genin he eliminated. He slightly reduced the frequency of calling out names. 2 hours later, the exam that these genin would probably never forget in their lives finally ended. The examinees who were still in the exam room silently wiped the sweat from their foreheads, looking at K's with fear. Was this person a demon? He could see through even the slightest movement or hint of cheating. Fortunately, many people frantically worked on their answers during the Mizu Nin's outburst and the time Nara Chuichi called K's out of the exam room, otherwise many more would probably have failed. Especially since he looked so calm and collected, as if catching them cheating didn't take much effort at all. What a joke, K's thought. When it comes to cheating, all of you here are trash. Showing off with a broadsword in front of Guangdong, wielding a big axe in front of Liu Ban. How embarrassing. When Nara Chuichi walked in, his expression was slightly stunned. Out of 130 to 40 people, less than 60 remained. The Chunin exam having such an elimination rate in the first round was unprecedented. What relieved him was that K's was still measured, leaving some from each major village. The Mizu Gakure, Kumo Gakure, and Suna Gakure each retained the basic configuration of 6 genin, plus some ninja from smaller hidden villages and Konoha ninja. Roughly calculated, a total of 19 teams passed the first round. Nara Chuichi gathered everyone and, escorted by the proctors, headed to the second round's exam site. This Chunin exam was not held in Training Ground 44, the Forest of Death as in the original story, but in the terrifying cave of Training Ground 11. The terrifying cave was located underground, with the surface being a barren area covered with rocks, as if gnawed by a giant mouth, rugged and uneven. Various openings of different sizes could be seen under these rocks, leading in all directions. The dark cave openings were like the wide-open mouths of demons, causing a sense of fear just by approaching them. It was certain that there was something special underground, and it was inhabited by many ferocious creatures, some of which were no less intelligent than humans. In this terrifying cave, one not only had to be careful of the ninja from various villages, but also of these wild creatures. "Chuichi, you're here." As Nara Chuichi led the group closer, a ninja with long yellow hair, wearing a Konoha Jonin vest, and a red cloak greeted them. "Inoichi." Nara Chuichi nodded. Yamanaka Inoichi, the head of the Yamanaka clan, and the current Ino of the Ino-Shika Cho trio, a Jonin proficient in the mind transfer technique, and the captain of Konoha's analysis team. So few people this time. Yamanaka Inoichi frowned. K's, who was behind them, moved his feet slightly, trying not to attract attention. Nara Chuichi smiled awkwardly, without explaining anything. K's was just a proctor, he was the head proctor, so he couldn't shirk responsibility for this. "It's okay, leave the rest to me. Saying that, he stepped forward. His wise eyes scanned the crowd, and everyone who met his gaze felt a sting in their eyes and a chill in their hearts, as if their secrets were all seen through. He said with a smile, "Before the second exam begins, you all need to sign a consent form. Casualties are unavoidable, but you can still choose to refuse and leave now. The way out is behind you." The ninja looked at each other. They had survived the devilish first round, and giving up now would be a disservice to all the brain cells they had killed in the first round. No one quit, and they quickly signed the consent forms one by one. "Very good, next are the exam rules." Yamanaka Inoichi put away the consent forms and said in a deep voice, "There are now 19 teams. Each team will receive one scroll, either the Heaven Scroll or the Earth Scroll. Only teams that collect both scrolls and reach the Cave of Redemption in the center of the terrifying cave will pass this round of the exam. The time limit is 3 days. Now, each team come and receive your scroll." The real exam had already begun. The proctors did not conceal which scroll they were distributing, so each team knew which scroll they had received. Many people had already begun to lock onto their hunting targets. Alright, each proctor will lead a team and enter the terrifying cave from different directions. After saying that, the teams left, led by the proctors. And by coincidence, the team that Kase was assigned to was none other than the Mizu Nin team led by Hoshigaki Kisame. He silently led the Mizu Nin team led by Hoshigaki Kisame to the designated entrance. He felt a constant, prickling sensation, as if a shark had locked onto him, drawn by the scent of blood. This feeling was extremely unpleasant, giving Chi Feng the urge to immediately turn around and shatter all of the shark's teeth. However, due to his position, he couldn't do that. He could only pull out a cigarette and start smoking it nonchalantly. Soon, they arrived at the designated entrance. "It's here." He stepped aside, leaving the entrance to them. The 3 mist ninja glanced at him deeply, and Hoshigaki Kisame, walking at the rear, even revealed his sharp shark teeth, smiling at him. Chi Feng's heart trembled slightly, but he didn't say anything. Until the 3 figures completely disappeared into the dark cave. "Hoshigaki Kisame's corpse is a little tempting," Chi Feng murmured. Although the current Hoshigaki Kisame was still young, had not yet become one of the 7 ninja swordsmen, and had not yet obtained the buff from the great sword Samahata. Hoshigaki Kisame, who possesses the great sword Samahata, is the real tailless beast, and their combination can be said to be the most suitable of all the 7 ninja swordsmen. But that doesn't prevent Chi Feng from coveting his body, corpse. The reason why Hoshigaki Kisame was able to snatch the great sword Samahata from Suigazan Fuguki was not only because of his strength and Obito Uchiha's help, but also because his chakra was more delicious to Samahata. Hoshigaki Kisame's appearance is frightening, but correspondingly, heaven has given him relatively special qualities. He can hold a lot of chakra, and after spending a long time with Samahata, he has also mastered a certain ability to absorb chakra. If he could get his corpse, he might be able to find this special physique. He rubbed his chin. Orochimaru should be quite interested in this kind of body, should I tell him? After thinking about it, he decided against it. Forget it, let's be honest, don't bite off more than you can chew, it's good enough to figure out the corpse bone pulse and Sharingan. Don't provoke Orochimaru. He was afraid. He pulled out a cigarette and slowly walked towards the morgue. His task in the second round was to collect corpses, but he didn't have to wait in the terrifying cave every day, he only needed to come and collect them every other day. Now he wanted to go back and get a good night's sleep. It had been a long time since he had woken up so early. For the current Chi Feng, there was nothing more pleasant than waking up at noon, taking a shower, and sitting in his favorite sunny spot to bask in the sun. A box of pungent straw cigarettes. A clumsy and stilted Ninja World novel. Accompanied by the distant, completely boiling crowd that had recovered from the early morning, watching the people outside come and go, struggling for a living, while he, separated by a district, stole half a day of leisure. This, perhaps, is the true taste of life. It is really very difficult to be able to mix into such a quiet area in the ninja world. So Chi Feng cherishes his current job very much. It might be more comfortable if no one bothered me. He glanced at Might Guy, who was frantically cleaning the morgue, feeling somewhat helpless. He changed into a Jeu-style reclining position. It would be great if there was no war. The ninja world is also a good world for retirement. Retiring in the ninja world, he's probably the only one who can think of that. Leisurely time always passes so quickly. Evening. He came to the central monitoring room of the terrifying cave. Inside were not only high-level Konoha officials, but also Jonin leaders from various hidden villages, all of whom were famous powerhouses in the ninja world. Chi Fang's arrival seemed very insignificant and did not attract much attention. Only Nara Chuichi noticed him and waved to him. Chi Fang walked to his side and asked in a low voice, "What's wrong?" The atmosphere in this monitoring room is a bit too terrifying. Compared to that, the terror in the terrifying cave is nothing. Nara Chuichi smiled bitterly. The situation is not optimistic. Konoha's genin are being targeted. Isn't this what was expected? Chi Fang didn't think there was anything surprising. The current situation in the entire ninja world is that the major hidden villages are watching Konoha and are ready to make a move. The reason why they agreed to participate in this Chunin exam is only because no village is willing to be the first to suffer Konoha's crazy counterattack and even less willing to work for others. Of course, the fact that the major hidden villages do not trust each other is also a major reason. Otherwise, Konoha would have been destroyed long ago. However, Chi Fang believes that Konoha's initiation of this Chunin exam before the outbreak of war is a good move. It can both explore the intentions of other villages and show Konoha's strength to deter them, even if it cannot stop the war. Delaying it for a while to give Konoha more breathing time is also excellent. The plan is a good plan, but this means that Konoha's genin will inevitably suffer a crazy attack. Because the major villages want to explore Konoha's foundation even more. So, since that's the plan, it's inevitable that the situation is serious. But he couldn't show any overly out of the ordinary expression, and continued to ask, "Is it very difficult?" Nara Chunichi nodded slightly. Kisame Hoshigaki of the Mist Village, Maki of the Sand Village, and Darui of the Cloud Village are all very strong, definitely possessing the strength of a Chunin or even higher. The villages are well prepared. Doesn't Konoha have anyone? Kaifeng asked, somewhat surprised. Shouldn't they? This is Konoha, after all. How could they not have any preparations? Not to mention Hiruzen Sarutobi, Danzo, that old schemer, would definitely resort to any means necessary to protect Konoha's reputation. At this point, Nara Chunichi's expression improved slightly. Elder Danzo has sent someone. That's good, then. Danzo wouldn't sit idly by and watch ninjas from other villages run rampant in Konoha. Danzo definitely has that capability. He might not be good at open and honest tactics, but he's definitely skilled in conspiracies and tricks. But Konoha has already lost 15 genin, Nara Chunichi lamented. That many. No wonder the atmosphere in the monitoring room was so cold. Then why do they also have such bitter and resentful expressions? Kaifeng gestured with his mouth, pointing to Suigazan Fuguki, the Jonin leader of the Mist Village, Tsuchikage, the Jonin leader of the Cloud Village, and Rasa, the Jonin leader of the Sand Village. Because they've started fighting too, Nara Chunichi shrugged. Kaifeng raised an eyebrow. How delightful. The situation wasn't as troublesome as he had imagined. Ninjas, after all, are used to fighting. He even felt that the first and third rounds of the Chunin exams were unnecessary. They should just go straight to the second round and kill each other. They're going to war anyway, why bother with so much extra stuff? However, these are things that the big shots should worry about. He has his own mission now. Then I'll go. Nara Chunichi nodded. Be careful. Of course, he cherishes his own life more than anyone else present, but he doesn't believe that these genin would attack a Chunin examiner like him. There's no need, and there's no benefit. Leaving the uncomfortable monitoring room, he entered the forest of death through the gate downstairs, holding a detailed map that clearly marked the locations of the corpses. Corpse Collector, Online Corpse Collection. First, a group of Konoha genin died cleanly. Their necks were all slit with a single stroke, probably done by mist or cloud ninjas. He silently mourned for them for 3 minutes. He collected the bodies and immediately headed to the next area. So many had died in just half a day. His work was very heavy. The process of collecting corpses went smoothly. After all, those who had already died and lost their heaven and earth scroll were no longer important. A large number of Konoha genin, and a small number of ninjas from other villages. Only one last place left. Kaifeng wiped the sweat from his forehead. Collecting corpses was also a tiring job, especially in such a large area as the Forest of Death. Running around was still very exhausting. A moment later, when he saw the 3 corpses, Kaifeng stopped. What goes around comes around. Let's see who the heavens will spare. Tisk tisk. They were 3 mist ninjas. looking at the 3 mist ninja corpses, with a green light spot appearing on one of them. He couldn't help but curl his lips. It's called the Chunin exam, but every village is like this, sending out nominally genin, but their actual strength is around Chunin level. This is a small-scale, simplified version of an arms exhibition. Skillfully taking out a scroll, he prepared to collect the corpses and then go home to rest. However, just as he squatted down, his movements stopped. He raised his head, frowning as he looked at the rocks not far away. 3 figures slowly appeared. They were mist ninjas, led by Kisame Hoshigaki. We meet again. Should I call you Examiner-san, or Corpse Collector-san? Yurito Aikida asked with a smile, leaning against a tree trunk. Kaifeng slowly stood up, frowning. You were waiting for me. How did they know he would come here to collect corpses? And they looked like they had been waiting for a long time. Kaifeng, Maruyama Kaifeng. Now that we know your name, it's not difficult to investigate your identity, it just takes a little time. Kisame Hoshigaki's mouth widened, and his distinctive voice rang out. As someone who was valued by Suigazan Fuguki from a young age and trained to become an Anbu, Kisame Hoshigaki's ability to gather information is definitely his forte. Even though this is Konoha, Konoha doesn't restrict their movements. This is the confidence of the big hidden villages, and they also want to understand Konoha's strength through the investigations of foreign ninjas, as a form of deterrence. But this just happened to give Kisame Hoshigaki the opportunity to investigate Kaifeng's identity. Hearing this, Kaifeng clicked his tongue. You're quite attentive. Saying that, he lowered his head and continued to deal with collecting the corpses on the ground. What's the point of waiting for me here? The entire terror cave is under the surveillance of Konoha. Anyone who dares to attack the proctors here will definitely not live to see the next day. Especially now that the higher-ups of Konoha are in a rage, Kisame Hoshigaki and the others dared to provoke them, their end will probably be miserable. But the next second, water release. Exploding water colliding wave. Splash. A torrential flow of water burst out, pouring down like a flood. Faced with the overwhelming water flow, Chifeng's figure was instantly submerged. TCH. The mist ninja who launched the attack was about to mock him when he heard. Watch out. Kisame Hoshigaki's figure flashed, appearing beside the mist ninja, kicking him away, avoiding a sudden punch. It was Chifeng, carrying the mist ninja's corpse that he didn't have time to collect. He said in a deep voice, Hey, are you mist ninjas brainless? Aren't these the corpses of your companions? What a pity to destroy them. The person Kisame Hoshigaki kicked away quickly stood up, not blaming him, but glaring fiercely at Chifeng. The weak die when they die. Rubbing his head with a headache. The education level of Kurigakur really needs to be improved. Now Chifeng somewhat supports the even more bloody and brutal blood mist policy that Obito launched later. These people definitely have problems with their brains, doing things without thinking. I said, are you guys actively attacking the proctors? Don't you want to take the exam anymore? But he saw Kisame Hoshigaki raise his hand, and as he twisted his fingers, a large number of mechanical parts slipped from his fingertips. Even a 3-year-old mist ninja can dismantle something like surveillance. As an Anbu ninja, how could he not know how to deal with surveillance? It's just that he likes to watch Konoha's higher-ups watch Konoha's genin being slaughtered, so he didn't dismantle it. Tisk. Chifeng clicked his tongue. The preparations are quite thorough. So it seems that the other party is indeed targeting him. Why? Just because he targeted the mist ninjas. Thinking about it this way, the reason seems quite sufficient. He targeted them, so aren't they allowed to retaliate? The nearby surveillance, has it all been dismantled? Chifeng asked, putting away the corpse on his shoulder, unable to help but ask. What do you think? Didn't leave anything behind, right? This is for your sake. After all, if you are discovered, you will be the ones who suffer. Quote. Quote. Kisame Hoshigaki frowned. Why does it seem a little off? As a shark, as an Anbu, as a mist ninja, his perception ability is also a strength. At this time, Chifeng, who looks harmless, is clearly as funny as a husky, but the muscles, skin, and pores on his body are unconsciously contracting. His shark-like pale eyes locked onto Chifeng, his body arched slightly, and his hand rested on the hilt of the sword behind him. It should all be dismantled, right? Chifeng muttered to himself. Inside the surveillance room in the center of the terror cave. Lord Danzo, Lord Shikaku, an abnormality has occurred in the surveillance of an area within the cave. The Konoha ninja in charge of adjusting the surveillance shouted. Danzo didn't speak, but silently watched a team of Konoha ninjas on the monitor's split screen as they were slaughtering a group of ninjas from other villages. Nara Shikaku frowned. What's the reason? I don't know, suspected to be caused by human sabotage. Without exception, the surveillance in the entire area, even the backup lines, have been cut off, the ninja replied. Who was approaching just now? The area is remote, only our corpse collection personnel, but... Corpse collection. The image of Chi-Feng flashed through Nara Shikaku's mind, and he frowned even more. But what? But a team of Kurigakure genin has been staying in that area and hasn't left. Nara Shikaku's face was gloomy, and he turned his head to glance at the tall Kurigakure genin not far away, carrying a strangely shaped sword on his back, Kisame Hoshigaki. He had roughly heard Nara Shuichi mention the situation of the first round of the Chunin exams. Thinking of what might have happened, he said in a low voice, send a team there as soon as possible. Repair the surveillance, and those who violate the rules of the Chunin exams. He glanced again at the silent Kisame Hoshigaki and shouted coldly. Kill. The hidden mist ninjas are too audacious, actually daring to attack an examiner during the Chunin exams. Putting aside their purpose, such behavior alone has crossed Konoha's bottom line. This is a crazy attempt to test the edge of the line of death. Nara Shikaku's temple throbbed as his brain spun at high speed, analyzing what the other party's actions meant and what they represented. What seems like an ordinary Chunin exam is actually a game between multiple high-level figures. The final result may not be important, but the process of this game is crucial. Many of the actions within may contain special meanings, potential purposes, and inclinations towards war. As a Hokage advisor, he was sent to preside over this exam in order to glean information and sniff out signals. Seeing Nara Shikaku withdraw his gaze, Zabuza Momochi's lips curled up. Kisame Hoshigaki was someone he had nurtured, and he was well aware of his strength. Their actions were also at his instruction. According to the third Mizukage's request, they were to explore Konoha's bottom line as much as possible. If the examiner of this Chunin exam were to be killed and Konoha's attitude was strong, then only 3 hidden mist genin would die, although Kisame Hoshigaki would be somewhat of a pity. But the current Kisame Hoshigaki has not shown any particularly strong talent. Moreover, even if he, Zabuza Momochi, were to die, as long as the hidden mist ninjas could gain an advantage in the war, his death would be insignificant. The third Mizukage would not feel sorry for him. No one's death matters. Knowing whether Konoha's attitude is tough or not will lead to a re-evaluation of the necessity of war. And if Konoha's attitude towards the death of an examiner is not very clear, then that would be interesting. Hidden Mist Village might gather the strength of the entire village to launch this war with all its might. Everything is to test Konoha's attitude. Whether they have the determination to fight at all costs against the 3 great hidden villages. As the Hidden Mist Village on the sea, they undoubtedly occupy a great geographical advantage, able to attack or defend as they see fit, all within their grasp. Therefore, the probing will begin with them. To be honest, Kaifeng didn't really want to take action. He just wanted to quietly collect the corpses and then go back to sleep. He didn't want to participate in these filthy and nonsensical matters. But the current situation is that even if he wants to leave, these hidden mist ninjas won't let him. Everyone, more or less, has a temper. The hidden mist ninjas provoked him again and again, and he also became a little angry. Completely forgetting his targeting of the hidden mist ninjas during the first round of the exam. Moreover, now that they have already pointed their guns at his nose, if he really doesn't do something, he wouldn't feel comfortable, and his thoughts wouldn't be clear. Unclear thoughts can easily lead to sleepless nights. For a more comfortable sleep at night, he is forced to make some counterattacks. Fortunately, the hidden mist ninjas have already removed the nearby surveillance, so there is no need to worry about anything. After confirming the safety of the perspective again and again, Kaifeng slowly drew out the long knife from his waist, gently touching the blade with one hand, as if wiping the blade. But in the next instant, the rock under his feet suddenly burst, and his whole body disappeared in a puff of smoke. Kisame Hoshigaki's face changed, and without hesitation, he leapt up, jumping backward, while rapidly forming hand seals in the air and pressing down. Water release. Water shark bullet technique. Whoosh. Ripples spread across the surface of the accumulated water that permeated the ground inside the cave, and several streams of water condensed to form sharks that pounced directly at Kaifeng, the ferocious and sharp shark mouths gleaming coldly, seemingly wanting to tear him to pieces. However, Kaifeng's figure was like flowing water, gently and tracelessly avoiding the shark's attacks one by one. Without sufficient speed and sufficiently sharp dynamic vision, this behavior, comparable to dancing on the tip of a knife, could easily lead to being swallowed by the sharks with the slightest carelessness. Water flow sword technique. His figure suddenly appeared beside a hidden mist ninja, and the sudden display of a familiar figure and sword technique made this hidden mist ninja stunned. How could the other party know their hidden mist sword technique? Crap. In the moment of daze, his hair stood on end. The hidden mist genin's expression changed drastically, and a look of horror flashed in his eyes. He never expected that he would become the other party's first target. What shocked him even more was that someone who was clearly just an unknown corpse collector could suddenly burst out with such speed. Combined with the water flow sword technique, it made his figure even more unpredictable. In the blink of an eye, he was already beside him. The hidden mist genin quickly drew out a kunai and swung it up to meet Kaifeng's blade. Kaifeng's eyes were calm, and the muscles in his right arm holding the long knife instantly bulged, abandoning the gentle and sufficient but weak water flow sword technique, and unreasonably slashed down with a knife full of power. Clang! A silver thread slid down from above, passed through the kunai, brushed past the hidden mist ninja, and with just a flash, the thunderous offensive disappeared into tranquility. The hidden mist genin's figure froze in place, and he turned his eyes with difficulty, landing on Kaifeng in front of him. Opening his mouth to say something, a red line suddenly appeared from the center of his eyebrows, and strands of blood gushed out from it. Along with the splashing water, his body tilted backward and fell to the ground. This scene happened too fast, so fast that several hidden mist ninjas were unable to react. What made him even more unacceptable was that a companion who also possessed the strength of a chunin was unable to withstand a single blow from Kaifeng, this inconspicuous corpse collector. This was an absolute difference in strength. There were no fancy moves, no dazzling ninjutsu, just one knife. Kaifeng was not surprised by this. What a joke. Although the system's current evaluation of him as elite chunin, he knows deeply that he was able to get the elite chunin rating entirely by relying on the taijutsu attribute, forcibly raising his evaluation level. If we disregard the other shortcomings, his taijutsu, combined with his physique after the Shikatsumiku's awakening, might not be inferior to that of a regular jonin. Of course, this only applies to taijutsu. However, it's more than enough to deal with these mist ninjas who have barely reached the chunin level. I'm just a corpse collector. You don't have to go to such lengths for me. It's not worth it. Chi Feng stood beside the corpses, flicked the blood off his blade, and spoke calmly. He glanced at Kisame Hoshigaki again, nonchalantly squatted down, collected the corpses on the ground, and continued his job. Kisame Hoshigaki stared at Chi Feng from afar, his expression no longer as relaxed as before, and the corners of his slightly upturned mouth were somewhat stiff. He signaled to another mist ninja with his eyes. That mist ninja immediately understood. The two of them simultaneously formed hand seals. Water release. Great waterfall technique. Water release. Great shark bullet technique. The combined double water release ninjutsu created surging tides that swept through the small cave. An exceptionally large and terrifying shark wagged its tail, darting through the water at an extreme speed, seemingly leading the charge of the tide. Chi Feng frowned slightly. The opponent's repeated use of water release ninjutsu had successfully transformed this cave into a battlefield best suited for mist ninjas. With unlimited chakra release, they had created an overwhelmingly large current of water. Taking advantage of the water's cover, Chi Feng closed and opened his eyes. A touch of scarlet suddenly appeared and flickered in his eyes, and the rapidly rotating black tomo seemed to be forming a circle. As his eyes moved from left to right, he finally found a gap amidst the turbulent currents and the ferocious shark. He immediately closed his Sharingan. His dynamic vision disappeared, but the flaw that existed had already been locked onto. Flowing water sword technique. Water and water can be fused together. Around Chi Feng's body, wisps of water swirled, and he charged into the tide against the current. Vaguely seeing Chi Feng's figure swallowed by the waves, the shark in the water tore at him wantonly. Another mist ninja quietly breathed a sigh of relief. It's over. Just as Kisame Hoshigaki was about to say something, he narrowed his eyes, glanced at the mist ninja beside him, then looked into the dark distance, retreated, and slowly disappeared into the water. Is that so? The sudden voice in the next second caused the mist ninja's pupils to contract violently, and a terrifying feeling instantly filled his mind. He tried to react, but it was too late. Chi. Blood splattered. The mist ninja's head instantly flew off his neck, and the eyes of the falling head were still filled with horror and disbelief. Clang. A soaking wet Chi Feng slowly appeared. Frowning and looking around, he couldn't help but smack his lips. As expected of Kisame Hoshigaki. Kisame may be powerful, but that's in the future. He hasn't fully realized his potential yet. Kisame Hoshigaki, without the Samahata, is not the real Kisame Hoshigaki. He runs fast. Chi Feng didn't have enough sensory abilities and didn't know where he had run off to. He silently took out a completely soaked cigarette. Tisk. A scorching temperature rose from his palm, drying the cigarette. Although it was still a bit shriveled and twisted after drying, at least he could smoke it, so he lit it. A cigarette afterward is better than being an immortal. He took a deep breath, picked up the still warm corpse of the mist ninja on the ground, slowly turned around, and met the rapidly approaching Konoha support team. The reason Kisame Hoshigaki left without hesitation was also because of their arrival. The Konoha support team appeared in front of Chi Feng, and the leader looked at Chi Feng and asked in a deep voice, "What's the situation?" Chi Feng waved his hand, "It's nothing, it's hot, so I took a shower." Quote. Where are the mist ninjas? What mist ninjas? I don't know. Quote. Although he failed to kill Kisame Hoshigaki, Chi Feng believed that Kisame was not a brainless person and would not publicize the fact that their mist ninjas ambushed Chi Feng and suffered a crushing defeat. So, if he doesn't say it, and Kisame doesn't say it, no one will know. Moreover, isn't it common sense for a Chunin examiner to defeat a genin examinee? Slowly exhaling a smoke ring, "Gentlemen, if there's nothing else, I'll leave first." He waved his hand and disappeared into the cave, leaving behind a few somewhat bewildered Konoha ninjas. The attack by the mist ninja was just a minor interlude. But for the Konoha higher-ups and Kisame Hoshigaki in the monitoring room, it was a significant matter, potentially influencing the diplomatic direction between Konoha and the hidden Mist Village, as well as the Mist Village's stance and level of involvement in the upcoming war. However, when Nara Shikaku and Kisame Hoshigaki learned of the outcome, they were both somewhat bewildered. They didn't fight, or did they not encounter each other? Nara Shikaku breathed a slight sigh of relief. Not fighting wasn't necessarily a good result, but at least it wasn't the worst-case scenario. Kisame Hoshigaki frowned. He knew that Kisame Hoshigaki would definitely prioritize the mission. This situation shouldn't have occurred, but with the Chunin exams still ongoing, he could only wait until they ended to inquire about the situation at the time. However, when Kisame Hoshigaki reappeared on the monitoring screen, the others were once again stunned. 2 mist ninja were missing, and Kisame Hoshigaki was unscathed. Even alone, he still posed a significant threat within the forest of death. But the key question was, where were the 2 mist ninja? In unison, the two exchanged glances, both seeing the other's confusion. But the exam continued. Back in the morgue, Kifu skillfully placed the collected corpses and tidied their attire. It had to be said that although it was the Chunin exams, quite a few of the participating examinees possessed Chunin level strength. Especially those ninjas from the Hidden Mist Village, the Hidden Cloud Village, and the Hidden Sand Village. The Chunin rate among Konoha ninjas was noticeably lower. Because there were many corpses, Kifu didn't waste any time. When he finished his work, looking at the corpses restored to their original state, he nodded with satisfaction. Recently, he felt that his cleanliness obsession was getting more and more serious, not only regarding the environment but also his almost obsessive pursuit of perfection with these corpses. Tisk. Clicking his tongue, he shook his head. After tidying up the corpses, the next step was, of course, the routine corpse looting. Originally, he didn't have much hope for these nominally genin corpses who actually possessed Chunin strength, and he was just performing the corpse looting lottery as a matter of routine. But unexpectedly, he actually drew some good stuff from these corpses. Success. Obtained Special Puppet Technique Scroll Part 1. It came from the corpse of a Sand Village Chunin. Special Puppet Technique Scroll. Kifu took out the scroll with some surprise. When he roughly scanned the contents of the scroll, he revealed a look of astonishment. Because what the scroll described was actually the process of creating human puppets. Human puppets. As a village specializing in the use of puppet techniques, the Hidden Sand Village considered human puppets a taboo. Anyone who touched this knowledge, once exposed, would be subjected to relentless encirclement and suppression by sand ninjas. Puppet techniques were skills researched by the second Kage, shaman of the hidden sand village, and were a technique that combined puppet creation and puppet manipulation. General puppet creation involves using various woods, metals, or other materials, combined through special techniques. Coupled with puppet manipulation techniques, it allows puppeteers to not have to participate in battles personally and to exert some bizarre abilities. However, the creation of human puppets involves using human bodies, removing their internal organs, retaining their original chakra and abilities, and maximizing the preservation of the original abilities of the human puppet. But human puppets ultimately need to be based on humans, and the creation process is very cruel, so it is explicitly prohibited by the hidden sand village. However, some things exist for a reason. There are still many sand ninjas secretly researching the creation of human puppets. In Kifu's memory, the one who brought the human puppet technique to the extreme was Sasori of the Red Sand, the grandson of Chiyo, an elder of the hidden sand village. This terrifying being, who would later assassinate the third Kage of the hidden sand village and join the Akatsuki organization, even completely transformed himself into a human puppet. It could be said that although the seeds of the Third Shinobi World War had long been present, the real culprit that led to the outbreak of this war was him, Sasori of the Red Sand. Sasori has probably already tinkered with quite a few human puppets by now, right? Could this sand ninja have some connection with Sasori? Kifu closed the scroll. Although this kind of thing has high practical value, it's only the first part. Without the manipulation techniques, he can't make use of it. However, puppet creation is interconnected. If he can find some weaknesses or shortcomings of ordinary puppets from it, it might be able to play an unexpected role on the battlefield in the future. Regarding human puppets, to be honest, Kifu, who was used to seeing corpses, wasn't really repulsed. His acceptance was very high, perhaps because he had known about the existence of human puppets for a long time. In the future, in addition to those messy Ninja World novels, there will be one more leisure reading material. In this regard, Kifu felt quite good about it. A picture suddenly flashed in his mind. He made a human puppet and could control it perfectly. Then he said to the puppet, "You are responsible for showing off, and I am responsible for playing it safe." Thinking of this, he shook his head with a smile, not taking it to heart. It's just that if people knew that he regarded the scroll for making human puppets as leisure reading material, who knows what others would think. The main reason is that those novels in the ninja world are too trashy. For him, who is used to seeing all kinds of novels, they are really not much different from reading language textbooks. And the creation of human puppets also contains a lot of knowledge about human body structure, which may not be useful, but it's better to know than not to know. At the same time, the appearance of this scroll inevitably made Kifu think of the assassination of the third Kage by Sasori of the Red Sand. The war is coming soon. Besides that scroll, the remaining corpse looting attempts didn't yield anything unexpected. Just a mundane increase of 2 attribute points. The improvement in strength remains steady. He opened the attribute panel. Character: Maruyama Kazakas. Age: 13 years old. Attributes: Fire, Earth. Strength: Elite Chunin. Kekkei Genkei. Shikatsumyuku Medium Sharingan Single Tomo. Body: 52. Spirit: 32. Ninjutsu: 26. Genjutsu: 24. Control: 29. Seals: 29. Taijutsu: Flowing Water Sword Technique. Ninjutsu: Transformation Technique, Fire Release, Great Flame Flower, Earth Release, Rock Hiding Technique, Earth Release, Earth Mausoleum Return, Fire Release, Flame Bullet, Water Release, Water Formation Wall, Wind Release, Great Breakthrough, Shadow Clone Technique. Items: Flint's Obsession, Inherited Forehead Protector equipped Konoha Jonin Nakagawa Kamirio Experience Card Rare Special Puppet Technique Scroll Part 1. The system's evaluation is still only Elite Chunin. Kazakas estimates that if he wants to improve the system's evaluation again and reach the level of Special Jonin, his overall attributes must improve by more than one level. I just hope that I can improve to the evaluation of Special Jonin before the war starts. Although Special Jonin has the word special, it is still Jonin. The gap between Jonin and Chunin is much larger than the gap between Chunin and Genin. Especially the Special Jonin's strength in the system evaluation, Kazakas estimates that the real strength should not be much inferior to ordinary Jonin. If he can have the strength of Jonin before the war starts, then his ability to protect himself in the war will greatly improve. The Reaper's mission can also be completed more smoothly. As long as he survives this war, he can have at least 10 years of peace. As soon as he thinks of the peace after the war, he can be a salted fish every day, from sunrise to sunset. Kazaka's feels full of energy. The efforts he is making now are all for the sake of being a better salted fish in the future. After coming to the Naruto world, he has completely inherited the attributes of a dead Jai, insisting on bringing the salted fish physique to the extreme. Why are you here again? Kazaka's looked at Asuma next to him with a lifeless expression. It was okay during the school term at the Ninja Academy. Asuma wouldn't come every day. He would only come back to find him every few days when he couldn't bear his nicotine addiction. But now, he comes at most every other day, even every day at a fixed time in the past 2 days. Kazaka's is speechless. At any rate, he is the son of the Hokage of Konoha, with an extraordinary status. What's with running to the morgue every day? It's just that Sarutobi Hiruzen is too busy to pay attention to them now, otherwise, he might be given a hard time one day. Asuma took a puff of his cigarette, apparently wanting to learn from Kazaka's and evolve into a salted fish. I heard you went to be an examiner for the Chunin exam. Asuma asked. What? Kazaka's glared at him unhappily. Are the genin from other villages very strong? The old man's face hasn't been very good when he comes home these days. A Chunin exam is not enough. Your old man is worried about other things, Kazaka's replied faintly. It seems that the negotiations between the village and the other 3 villages are not going very smoothly. That's right, now everyone can see that Konoha has become the target of public criticism. Everyone wants to take a bite of Konoha, the biggest piece of meat. At this time, if you want to negotiate or discuss, it is definitely impossible without paying a price that Sarutobi Hiruzen feels very painful. Besides, in the ninja world, interests come first. Even if you pay the price, you can't guarantee that these hidden villages will not suddenly rise up at a critical moment. It is not so much negotiating with them as it is buying time for Konoha. During this period, Kazaka's could clearly feel that a solemn atmosphere was rippling throughout Konoha. Jiraiya, Orochimaru, and Tsunade, who were stationed outside, have all returned to the village. Worried about what? War. Asuma extinguished the cigarette butt and looked at Kazaka's expectantly. Faced with his gaze, Kazaka's curled his lips, but still handed him a cigarette. Smoking so much at such a young age, worried about getting lung disease. What else? Even students like Asuma who are still studying at the Ninja Academy know that the war is coming, let alone those ninjas in Konoha. Hey, Asuma chuckled lightly and lit the cigarette contentedly. Everyone wants to take action but doesn't dare to be the first to do so. I guess it will take a while. It has to be said that although Asuma is young, he is, after all, the son of Sarutobi Hiruzen. Influenced by what he sees and hears, he can see through many things more clearly than others. Maybe, but sometimes, some things are not so easy to control. Just like this Chunin exam, Konoha wants to re-establish its momentum through this exam, but the major hidden villages are obviously also prepared. Kakashi has graduated and become a Chunin, and the remaining talented geniuses are either still in the Ninja Academy or, like Kakashi, can no longer participate in the Chunin exam. The villages around were consciously targeting them, and the only force that could barely hold on was the root ninjas that Danzo had planted. But one fist can hardly fight 4 hands. As Kaifeng, who went to collect corpses every day, was very clear about the situation of the Konoha genin inside the terrifying cave at this stage. It would not be an exaggeration to say that everyone was shouting to beat them. Therefore, overall, Konoha's situation was not optimistic, and it even felt like shooting themselves in the foot. The original intention of the plan was good, but they didn't expect that other villages would be so well prepared for the sudden Chunin exams. Asuma, you're here too. As usual, Might Guy appeared here with sweat all over his face, panting heavily, his eyes full of youthful enthusiasm. Now, Kaifeng's morgue has really become a place for him to rest. Labor like cleaning is no different from resting for Guy. Not to mention that the morgue is air-conditioned, and the coolness when you first walk in is just amazing. Guy, you're a little early today. Asuma greeted him listlessly. Suddenly, he felt that maybe it would be a great choice for him and Kaifeng to get an ordinary position and retire in Konoha. As for Kurenai, he glanced at Kaifeng, who looked indifferent. Kurenai has been by Asuma Sarutobi's side recently, and he hasn't even had a chance to get close, otherwise he wouldn't have come here to smoke in silence. Guy skillfully picked up the broom, seemingly talking to himself, but also answering. The Sand Village's delegation suddenly said they were leaving today, and my training was interrupted, so I can only come here first. Kaifeng, who was squinting on the rocking chair, suddenly opened his eyes, sat up and asked, Guy, you said that the Sand Village's delegation just left. They didn't even wait for the end of the Chunin exams. Yes, Kaifeng-senpai, isn't it strange, such an important thing as the Chunin exams, they actually gave up just like that. Guy seemed very speechless. That's a Chunin, and he hasn't even reached the level of a genin yet. I don't know what those people are thinking, youth. How can you shrink back? After saying that, Guy rushed into the morgue with a look of bravery, displaying his 32 form sweeping technique. Asuma, who knew Kaifeng best, glanced at him in surprise, noticing his solemn expression, and couldn't help but ask, what's wrong? Kaifeng said in a deep voice, things are troublesome, but with the Sand Village delegation's abrupt behavior, the higher-ups should have guessed something, right? You mean. Asuma's pupils shrank, and he couldn't react for a while. Kaifeng nodded heavily, turned to look in the direction of the Hokage building. War is coming. The Chunin exams were forced to stop. The sudden departure of the Sand Ninjas made Konoha, as well as the Mist Ninjas and Cloud Ninjas participating in the Chunin exams, realize the seriousness of the situation. Following the departure of the Sand Ninjas, the Mist Ninjas, Cloud Ninjas, and a group of ninjas from small hidden villages all chose to leave. Fearing that if they left slowly, they would be stopped by Konoha. Hokage building, office. Hiruzen, how could you let the Sand Ninjas leave? Danzo pushed open the door and entered the office with a gloomy face, looking at Hiruzen Sarutobi, who was standing by the window smoking, and asked sternly. Hiruzen Sarutobi turned around, the curling smoke from the tobacco in his pipe blurring his face and eyes. Seeing that he didn't answer, Danzo walked in with a cane. Do you know that Rasa, who led the Sand Ninjas this time, is a disciple of the third Kazekage of the Sand Village, and is very likely to become the fourth Kazekage in the future. If we can detain him, the Sand Ninjas will definitely be afraid to act rashly. Danzo. Hiruzen Sarutobi interrupted his old friend with a low shout. Sharp eyes shot out from his old eyes, staring straight at Danzo's eyes, word by word, we are Konoha. We are Konoha. Konoha, which inherited the will of the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju, the Konoha that would rather give up the nine-tailed beasts than adhere to peace, the Konoha that could clearly look down on the ninja world and suppress the four great powers but chose a peaceful approach. What's more, the Sand Ninjas only showed some wrong signs, and there was no news of anything out of the ordinary. If the front line reported that the Sand Ninjas were launching a large-scale attack on Konoha, Hiruzen Sarutobi could still consider it. But now the ninja world is clearly eerily calm, and detaining the delegation from another village would put Konoha at a disadvantage in terms of righteousness. Although the ninja world is ruthless and can use any means, the preparation of having a justified reason is also necessary. It is easy to detain the Sand Ninja delegation, but in this way, the ninjas of Konoha will feel that their Konoha is doing something wrong on the battlefield, and their morale will be reduced by 3 points, greatly reducing their strength. Even if it was not Rasa, the disciple of the third Kazekage, who came, but the third Kazekage himself, they could not do this. Just like the death of the second Hokage, Tobarama Senju, who went to the Cloud Village to sign an alliance, although it was the private behavior of the Gold and Silver brothers, it also made the Cloud Ninjas a target of verbal criticism in the ninja world, thus falling into a disadvantage in the alliance with Konoha. This is the best proof. Pedantic, stupid, stubborn. Danzo looked angry, scolded 3 words, and slammed the door and left. In his opinion, Hiruzen Sarutobi was really extremely pedantic. At this time, he was still talking about etiquette. He should directly detain all the delegations, and then take the lead in sending troops to destroy the Sand Village. The first step in unifying the ninja world would be successful. Until now, he still chooses to passively be beaten. The current Konoha is no longer the Konoha that was shaky and needed to endure when the second Hokage, Tobarama Senju, had just passed away. The current Konoha can look down on the entire ninja world. Hiruzen is indeed old. He has lost his ambition, the position of Hokage should be replaced. Danzo strode away from the Hokage building. The eerie calm did not last for a few days. Just 3 days later, the Sand Village finally couldn't suppress the internal strife between the two factions in the village. The Sand Ninja Elder Group, headed by Chiyo, decided to transform internal contradictions into external contradictions. Otherwise, before the war even started, their sand village would probably fall apart. So, the sand village announced to the entire ninja world. Their sand village's third case cage, the existence known as the strongest case cage of all time, is dead. As soon as the news came out, the entire ninja world was in an uproar. The case cage, the highest leader of a village, the symbol of the village, and the backbone of all the village's ninjas, the third case cage, at the peak of his power, just died like that. Immediately following this, what caused even more of an uproar in the ninja world was the news released by Sunagaku that the mastermind behind the assassination of their third case cage was Konoha. Bluntly pointing the finger at Konoha, the meaning was self-evident. Sunagaku already had irreconcilable conflicts with Konoha. During the Second Shinobi World War, countless Sunagaku ninjas died at the hands of Konoha ninjas, including Elder Chiyo's daughter-in-law, two shadow-level powerhouses with extraordinary talent. And the one who killed them and rose to fame in one battle was Tsukumo Hitaki, known as Konoha White Fang. Now that White Fang was dead, Chiyo's hatred for Konoha had not diminished at all. Chiyo's feud with Konoha, for Chiyo, who had great influence in Sunagaku, was naturally Sunagaku's feud with Konoha. So, the early bird that the entire ninja world had been waiting for finally appeared. It wasn't Iwagakure, which was the most active, nor Kurigakure, which had the most obvious intentions, but Sunagaku, which had been silent all along. But no matter who it was, their appearance was a good thing for these hidden villages. Within Sunagaku, this statement was unanimously approved. Although many people saw that the death of the third case cage was suspicious, no one dared to speak out in this situation. At the same time, the spearhead was directed outwards, and internal conflicts were resolved. So, the next day, led by the two elders, Chiyo and Ebizo, Sunagaku entered the Land of Rain, heading straight for the border of the Land of Fire. At the same time, the leader of Iwagakure, the third Tsuchikage, Onoki, announced to the entire ninja world that Iwagakure was also declaring war on Konoha, criticizing Konoha's unjust act of assassinating the leaders of other hidden villages. Anyone with eyes could see that Iwagakure was just using this as an excuse. They had long been unable to restrain themselves. The third Tsuchikage was an old schemer. The one who first plunged the ninja world into turmoil was his restlessness, creating a trend that Iwagakure was about to attack Konoha, and secretly inciting other hidden villages, forming the illusion that Konoha was about to be besieged, thus leading to the irreversibility of the war. The simultaneous declarations of war by Sunagaku and Iwagakure put Konoha in a very passive situation. However, misfortunes never come singly. What truly plunged Konoha into the quagmire of war was that Konoha's ally, Kumogakure, unilaterally tore up the alliance, and at the same time, led by the third Raikage, launched a large-scale attack on Konoha. In an instant, of the four major hidden villages outside of Konoha, three of them had actually launched wars against Konoha. On the contrary, Kurigakure, which had been very active before, became silent at this moment, and no one knew what Kurigakure was considering. The originally peaceful ninja world had become like this in just 3 or 4 days. Small hidden villages and ordinary residents were all alarmed. The entire ninja world was plunged into the panic of war. Konoha, Hokage Building, Supreme Conference Room. Hiruzen Sarutobi, Danzo Shimura, Kaharu Udatane, Homura Mitokado, Konoha's 4 top leaders presided over this meeting. All Jonin in Konoha attended this meeting. Danzo, sitting next to Hiruzen Sarutobi, looked at him with suppressed resentment in his eyes. It's like this again. It's become like this again. Hiruzen Sarutobi's indecision had led Konoha into the embarrassing situation of facing 3 major hidden villages at the same time. If Hiruzen Sarutobi had listened to his advice earlier and launched an attack first, defeating any one village, Konoha would not have become so passive. Even with the powerful Iwagakure, Danzo was confident that in a one-on-one situation, Iwagakure was definitely not Konoha's opponent. Destroy one to deter the other 3 major hidden villages, and when Konoha recovered, it would have the strength to swallow the entire ninja world. Unfortunately, it was too late. Hiruzen Sarutobi also knew his friend's resentment, but he did not regret it. He had his own persistence and his own philosophy. These things were above everything else. After simply explaining the situation to all the Jonin present, the entire conference room fell silent, and the faint atmosphere of Susha intensified. Konoha doesn't like war, doesn't provoke war, but it doesn't mean it's afraid of war. Hiruzen Sarutobi was very satisfied with this momentum. This was what he insisted on. Orochimaru, Jiraiya, Tsunade. Hiruzen Sarutobi called out the names of his 3 most trusted disciples. They were one of Konoha's greatest assets. Orochimaru had a faint smile on his lips, licked his lips, and didn't speak. Jiraiya stood up heroically, and put away his usual playful attitude. When Jiraiya got serious, you could completely trust him. Tsunade's aura wasn't as strong as theirs, but she also had a great weapon that they couldn't compare to. Once this weapon came out, the gods would retreat. Orochimaru, land of Taki. Jiraiya, land of hot water. Tsunade, land of rain. Hiruzen Sarutobi concisely assigned the 3 to complex battlefields. He waved his hand, prepare yourselves and set off as soon as possible. The 3 nodded, turned around, and left directly. As they left, many Jonin in the conference room also left with them. Without too much pre-war mobilization, and with the war having been building up for so long, the preparations had been almost completed during the Chunin exams. Although he didn't expect Sunagakur to take the lead instead of Iwagakure, the result was the same. After a large number of Jonin left, Hiruzen Sarutobi looked at Danzo. As an old partner who had worked together for decades, Danzo understood his meaning with just a look from Hiruzen Sarutobi. Although Danzo couldn't stand Hiruzen Sarutobi's indecisiveness, now was obviously not the time to argue. He slowly stood up with a cane. If Kurigakure dares to land, they won't be going back. An aura surged from the elderly Danzo. Looking at the conference room, which was already half empty, Hiruzen Sarutobi sighed heavily. Whether Konoha can survive this time depends on whether the efforts of these years have paid off. Whenever this happened, Hiruzen Sarutobi couldn't help but think of Tsukumo Hatake. If Tsukumo Hatake were still here, Konoha would definitely be able to handle things more easily. Although he was the Hokage, he couldn't go to the battlefield for various reasons. He needed to guard Konoha's rear and coordinate the overall situation. Once he went to the battlefield, it would mean that Konoha had exhausted all its means, which would be a signal to incite even more fierce attacks from the major villages. Everyone, let's work together to protect Konoha and make all the necessary preparations so that our comrades on the battlefield can have no worries. Yes, Hiruzen Sarutobi looked at Shikaku Nara. Shikaku, the layout of the supply line is entrusted to you. Yes, I only hope that in this chaotic world, Konoha can produce more, and more heroes. In the past few days, Kaifeng had been living in constant anxiety. He couldn't sleep well, his appetite was gone, his smoking addiction lessened, and even the excitement he felt every day when touching corpses had faded. He knew that the war had broken out, and the thing he had been worrying about for a long time had suddenly landed. Instead of feeling relieved, he felt even more apprehensive. He listlessly stubbed out his cigarette butt. The war hasn't really started yet. I'm just a small corpse collector, so I shouldn't have to go to the battlefield for the time being, right? Kaifeng looked at the sun high in the sky. The dazzling sunlight shone on his body, but he couldn't feel much warmth. Tisk, is the air conditioning in this morgue really that cold? Suddenly, Kaifeng's body stiffened. He slowly turned his head and saw a figure appearing under the shade of a tree not far away. Wearing Konoha's standard green flak jacket, with flowing long hair and a slender figure, if you didn't look at her face, this supple waist might be a beauty. Unfortunately, Kaifeng chuckled and shouted, Lord Orochimaru. Why run to my place if you're not going to the battlefield? Are you bored? Kaifeng-kun, you are hereby conscripted into the vanguard unit. Orochimaru licked his lips and looked at him with interest. Kaifeng's face fell. Me, I'm just a chunin. I'm not very useful, am I? Konoha doesn't have many corpse collectors. Orochimaru didn't explain anything, but left a sentence and his figure disappeared into smoke. Half an hour later, Konoha Gate. It was a shadow clone. Kaifeng wiped the sweat from his forehead. He finally knew what his apprehensive feeling was all about. That's right, Konoha didn't have many corpse collectors to begin with. Otherwise, he wouldn't be the only one willing to guard the morgue. Apart from him being truly dedicated, most of the others were medical ninjas who also served in that role. He knew that going to the battlefield was inevitable, but he didn't expect it to be so soon. He almost forgot that Orochimaru had been eyeing him. He still couldn't understand why Orochimaru, one of the legendary Sannin and a disciple of the Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi, had taken a liking to him. Moreover, once he set his sights on him, he wouldn't let go. It doesn't make sense, he complained, but his body was very honest. He packed up his things a little and walked towards the door. Now is a time of war, and anyone who receives a conscription order must go, otherwise they will be punished for village treason. Due to the urgency of the war, Kaifeng's arrival did not attract much attention. The vanguard unit was mostly composed of Jonin and experienced Chunin. After stabilizing the situation and confirming the situation, the remaining ninjas of Konoha would gradually rush to the front line. This first batch was the strongest in overall strength, but also the most dangerous. Soon, a mighty ninja force left Konoha. Land of Fire. Border. Orochimaru led Konoha's vanguard unit of more than 100 Jonin and Chunin to the Fire Country border checkpoint, Ushi Checkpoint. At this time, the Ushi Checkpoint had become a ruin. The Konoha ninjas originally stationed there had either died or successfully evacuated in the end. Some places were still burning, and many corpses could be seen among them, some from Konoha and some from Iwa. Orochimaru waved his hand with a gloomy face, and several Jonin consciously appeared beside him. Organize yourselves and set up camp here first. Yes, collect all these corpses and send them to. He glanced at Kaifeng, who was at the very back of the crowd, pointed at him, give him a separate tent and send all the corpses to him. Yes, several Jonin responded and glanced at Kaifeng, who was inconspicuous, before immediately taking action. Because it was already on the border of the Land of Fire, and they could encounter battles at any time, the vanguard unit had already traveled for more than a day when they arrived here. Although they were still in a state of high tension, if they continued to move forward, they might suffer heavy losses if they were ambushed by well-rested Iwa ninjas. Most of the ninjas in the vanguard unit were experienced ninjas who had experienced the Second Shinobi World War, so the camp was quickly set up. Inside the command tent in the center, Orochimaru and a group of elite Jonin in charge of the squads were gathered here. Of course, there was also an unexpected person. To be honest, Kifu, who was just processing corpses, was dumbfounded when he was summoned to the camp by the Anbu ninja. Those seated were all big shots, elites from the Uchiha clan, Hyuga clan, Nara clan, Yamanaka clan, Akamichi clan, and other prominent Konoha clans. It was truly awkward for him, a mere Chunin, to be there. But there was no choice. According to Orochimaru, Kifu, who was in charge of the corpse disposal squad, was considered an independent squad and needed to participate in this meeting. Even though the corpse disposal squad consisted of only Kifu. However, he tried his best to remain invisible, avoiding attracting the attention of the big shots. At this moment, a map of the border area was placed in the middle of the camp. Orochimaru looked at the map, pondered for a moment, and said, "What do you think should be our first step?" His gaze swept over everyone, his snake eyes revealing a chilling intent. After a brief silence, Uchiha Shin reached out and pointed to a place not far from the Land of Fire's border, within the Land of Waterfall, Torimori Outpost. He paused for a moment and continued, "The vanguard of Iwa ninjas wouldn't just retreat after a single raid. It's highly likely they've occupied our Torimori Outpost and are using it as a base to concentrate the war on our Land of Fire's border." Orochimaru didn't speak. Hyuga Hanma glanced at Uchiha Shin and said in a deep voice, "There's also a possibility that the Iwagakure vanguard is hiding somewhere within our Land of Fire, without leaving." Indeed, both were possible. Torimori Outpost is important, but the first thing our vanguard needs to do is stabilize the situation. So, I think we need to first eliminate possible threats within the Land of Fire. It was Nara Chuichi who spoke, his words neutral, not offending either Uchiha or Hyuga, and clarifying his own views. Orochimaru still didn't speak, his gaze falling on Kifu in the corner. He licked his lips. "Kifu-kun, what do you think?" Kifu blinked. The gazes of all the big shots in the camp fell on him, giving him a feeling of being pricked by thorns. "What the hell? Why ask me at a time like this? I'm just a corpse collector. I'm a Chunin. Are you out of your mind?" Kifu was inwardly furious but didn't dare to disobey Orochimaru's order, even though the others' gazes had become somewhat strange. His presence here as a Chunin corpse collector was already surprising enough. Now, Orochimaru was actually seeking his opinion, which was quite intriguing. To be valued so much by Orochimaru, no one dared to underestimate him. Many even suspected that this unknown corpse collector was Orochimaru's disciple. Definitely. Otherwise, why would Orochimaru value him so much? Orochimaru's disciple. Thinking of this, the gazes of the big shots instantly changed. Orochimaru, as Sarutobi Hiruzen's most valued disciple, belonged to the pure Hokage lineage and had a great chance of inheriting the Hokage position in the future. Then Kifu would also become part of the Hokage faction, and who knew, maybe he could even compete for the Hokage position someday. Thinking too far ahead. But the ninja world is also a relationship-based world, especially the teacher-student relationship, which can be said to be no less important than the father-son relationship. Of course, Orochimaru had guessed some of what these people were thinking, but he didn't deny it. Instead, he smiled and said nothing. This made them even more convinced that their guess was correct. Amidst the many meaningful glances, Kifu could only think for a moment before uttering, "I don't know." But in his heart, he answered the question himself. If I were the commander of the Iwa Ninja Vanguard, I would launch a surprise attack when the Konoha Vanguard had just arrived here and was preparing to rest, taking advantage of the Konoha ninjas' exhaustion and disorganization. Because he remembered that there seemed to be a ninjutsu called Earth Release, hiding like a mole technique, that could hide deep underground, avoiding some detection and making it very suitable for ambushes. Boom, boom, boom. Before he could finish his thoughts, a violent rumble suddenly occurred outside the camp. A ninja rushed in. Orochimaru-sama. Iwa ninjas. Iwa ninjas are attacking. Quote. Kifu silently completed the words he hadn't finished saying. That would have a higher success rate. That shouldn't count as being a jinx, right? Was I blessed? Was I? Kifu's jinx came true. But the big shots in the camp didn't hear it. There was no choice. The enemy attack was already at their doorstep. If they didn't quickly go out and contain the ambush, this vanguard was likely to suffer heavy losses. They all rushed out of the camp. When Orochimaru walked out, he gave Kifu a deep look, a look that was thought-provoking. Kifu smiled sheepishly. He followed the big shots out of the camp. He really just said it randomly. Who knew the Iwa ninjas were really planning to do that? This made him very awkward. After all, this Konoha vanguard consisted of very experienced ninjas. There was no reason they wouldn't check the surrounding environment before setting up camp, making sure there was no real danger before turning to building the camp. Especially since there were several Hyuga clan ninjas in the vanguard. Under the sweep of the Byakugan, ordinary ninjas had nowhere to hide. What are the sensory ninjas and the Hyuga's Byakugan doing? Didn't they notice anything? Uchiha Shin couldn't help but roar as soon as he walked out of the camp. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe for more videos.